Singer, songwriter, and dear friend of Limit Break Radio, Susan Calloway announced a live performance on July 15th at 20 Front Street, Lake Orion, a groovy suburb of hometown Detroit, Michigan. Known to the FF community as the voice of Final Fantasy XIV theme songs and Distant Worlds concerts, Susan is currently working on her own music and recently released her single, Time for This. Her live and unplugged performance promises to be soulful, inspiring, and a hangout with her fans. Tickets are only $15 and can be found at susancalloway.com. More tour dates and cities will be announced soon.
'Cause you don't need me, you're right. Ain't got no time, no, I ain't got no time.
This episode of Limit Break Radio is made possible by our generous Patreon donors, including Kavo Fulmine of Lamia, Jahar Narishma of Odin, and Tora Fug of Hyperion. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to support Limit Break Radio, visit patreon.com/limitbreakradio. Are you ready for the event of your lifetime? Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Yes, this Sunday is the Tranny Bowl 4-way electric cage match. You don't want to miss the hottest fighters duke it out in our underwater arena in Limsa Laminsa this Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. This is our most risque cockfight ever, with edible spandex fighting suits, and there's leeches that jump around too. They'll help eat those uniforms, which are Sunday, Sunday, Sunday flavored. Leeches love long, hard banana sundaes. Ooh, yeah! We are also a sponsored Lords of Verminion Go Minion Stop, so bring your 3-year-old children to the show. Done say no to the Tranny Bowl 4 electric cage match this Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
Live from Eorzea. Limit Break. With your hosts, Unhero.
Now behold the horror you have wrought.
Kahlo.
I said don't take your clothes off.
Juxtaposition.
I don't get it.
Ascalia.
Holy shit, totally forgot about him.
And Mika.
Oh my god.
LimitBreakRadio.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Limit Break Radio, episode 118?
Something like that.
I forget.
Yes, 118, that's right.
Wow. Oh, look at that.
It doesn't matter till we get to 200, let's be honest.
Yeah, no more milestones matter till we make it to 200.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for joining us, twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. Appreciate having you along, starting at 4 o'clock here. For those of you listening on the podcast that would like to join us live, please head on over to twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. Give it a follow. You'll get updates of when we go live. And we would appreciate having you along on Sundays, because then you can get in on the fun and be a live caller to Limit Break Radio. You can do that by sending a Skype message over to Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. Now, I've heard from the Limit Break Radio HR department because last week I was apparently too mean to people.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know.
Who runs the HR department?
Yeah, first of all, when do we get an HR department? And every time we complain, you say, go tell HR. And as far as we can tell, they don't exist.
Yeah, well.
Also, last week was our Be Mean on Purpose episode. And I'm pretty sure that you've been
Wait, Nika.
Thanks for explaining the joke.
Our Be Mean on Purpose episode? You mean when you were super mean as well?
Yeah, that was super mean.
That was as mean as Nika gets.
But like, I'm pretty sure he's also been meaner than that episode. So
I don't
if the complaint was about last episode, then
I've
he's
been
not
meaner.
around for very long.
I've been angrier than that episode. That's for sure.
Yeah, this was pointless meanness. Like, there was no, like, usually when you're
That's
mean,
true.
there's a
That's
reason
true.
behind it. This
Yeah.
was just you being mean to be mean.
Yeah, usually
No, I
I'm trying to
never
make a
looked at
point.
it that way.
A lot of-
Being angry doesn't necessarily mean he's being mean.
See, what you guys are telling me is that my anger is generally justified,
No.
and that I behave correctly all the time.
Yes, Daddy.
That's not what we said.
That is very far from what we said and could not be argued in any court of law. On that note, I have some papers for you later on.
Anyway, thanks for joining us here. LimitBreakRadio.com is the website. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, we invite that you do that. And if you do, you might actually notice some new content that's worked its way over to our podcast feed. So on all of our podcast feeds that we run, you'll notice that 2 new entries have been added, and that is each news segment from each hour of Checkpoint Radio. Now, if you've never listened to Checkpoint Radio, you can listen over at checkpointradio.com. You can check out full episodes over there, as well as the podcast. We do a podcast every single week, and now that podcast feed includes on-demand versions of the news updates that we run every hour. So if you like, Final Encounter Cast, but you think maybe it's too long, like it takes
Like myself.
you don't have 2.5 hours to listen to us drone on, and you want to
can't take 9.5 inches.
You want to get all of your gaming news and esports news inside of 7 minutes. This is how you can do that. So,
Are you trying to say that our news segment on FEC is a little long?
a little bit. But I like it that way.
Yeah, I do too. I like having time to break down
a lot
everything.
of discussion.
Yeah.
That's where most of our discussion comes from.
But you're right. On Checkpoint, it's like we've got like 12 minutes with the runoff, so move.
Yeah, right.
Daddy likes it long.
Yeah. What? Ugh, gross. Anyway, so yeah, thank you guys for joining us today. We appreciate having you along. And again, if you've never had an opportunity, go subscribe to the podcast. That's how you can get all of that content delivered to you. It's being featured as a special feature on all of our podcast feeds. But if you want to if you like it, if you listen to it and you end up liking it, make sure that you subscribe at checkpointradio.com or to the LBR Podcast Network. Again, we're taking your calls. Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715. LimitBreakRadio.com/Discord if you want to call in on Discord.
And you guys should call in because then we don't have to do as much work.
That's true.
I like it when we get to do less work.
You can already hear my voice starting to go.
Dude, that
does
that
Nika.
opening read obliterated my throat. It hurts so bad.
I'm sure it does.
That was not fun.
That's probably not the thing that's hurt your throat the most.
A lifetime? Hell no.
It's so huge.
That's correct.
Can we not go down this road, please?
Man, college was crazy.
Kids know dick.
I sure did.
Anyway, we are, of course, live from our Eorzean studios. Let's kick it on over to our studios where Nika's just being annoying. Thanks.
You mean being awesome?
No.
No, not
Being a
women.
samurai.
Good Lord, there are so many people standing there.
Yeah, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, what's up with all these hosts, and how come I have to be here every week if they're all here? Why can't they take over?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of people hanging out in the studio. If you want,
I see a lot of people volunteering to take over for us for a week. We could have a week off. We go raiding.
here's the thing: is that usually our audience doesn't hang out near us when the iCam is available. They go do their own thing somewhere in the studio. But because we can't use the iCam right now.
This episode of Limit Break Radio is made possible by Miss Freshly's. Try their new delicious bun recipe today. Now with more boy butter.
Nailed it!
He smashed all the follows out of the tip mug. Oh, you dick.
No, there was someone who logged in our LBR FC who logged in, and that's their name now.
Boob for Skuro.
Oh, look at that.
Skuro fan club.
That needs
When does Skuro's mom start listening to our show?
Needs to not be a thing. The Skuro fan club. That's disturbing.
All right, yeah. I think if you're in the Skuro fan club, call in and let us know why.
So, by the way, I guess you guys have noticed that the tip jar. We're including the tip jar on screen now. So There's that.
Give us
It
That's
was
a thing.
half full. Now it's only a quarter. I'm so upset.
Well, I think that the Limit Break Radio audience is going to need to fix that. That's a problem only they can solve.
We love the tip jar.
That's right, because it makes you want to give more.
Juxta, you deliver pizzas. How do you feel about the tip jar?
I love tips.
Just the tip?
Just the tip?
No, all part of
How's
the
your tip?
Sore. Sore and very colorful.
Ugh.
Oh, that's
Colorful.
Oh, we didn't
Ugh.
need that.
What?
What, you've never had a bruise before? It's colorful.
It's that.
blue.
Okay.
That's
Black and blue.
That's quite a lot of. That's a lot of skin if you're
Yellow
bruising.
if you're one of those weird people that bruise that color.
Oh. Well, I thought, don't bruises just turn yellow after a period
certain
of time?
kinds of bruises, depending on the type of.
You need more potassium in your diet.
I think that's jaundice, dude.
Oh. Well, that
saying.
would explain my liver problems.
Yeah. I would. Anyway,
Lick my balls.
thank you. That was necessary. Join us in the LBR studio. It's on the Sargentana server. The Goblet, 5th Ward, plot number 30. We will go ahead and take all of you Balmung folk that are getting logged out right about now. So you can just come on over here, hang out.
That's so crazy.
Until that queue dies down.
You're inviting the remnants
the
of Balmung
Baldungs?
here?
Yeah, so we can mock them and make
To
fun
our
of them.
studio?
Yeah.
They don't need to be present for us to mock them.
Who's going to clean the studio afterwards?
They're more likely to show up at the end of the show when we do fanfics.
Well, now you have gonorrhea.
Wait,
Yeah,
did you
that's
just confirm that we're doing fanfics today?
I did not.
Yes.
I just said that's
That
the
is
best time
not.
for them
That's
to show
not
up.
that is not a no.
Confirmed fanfiction.
Nope. No.
Yeah,
I'm not making any promises that I'm not gonna.
butt god?
We
No.
get segments on this show that are requested to have come back or do again. Lots of times it's limit breaking music.
Oh my god, we get so many requests to do bits again.
Yeah, we get limit breaking music. Whose fan is it anyway?
Yep.
Do we get any bit more requested than fan fiction?
Shit, yeah!
Like, is there any that's even close?
No, I don't think so.
Take off your clothes.
It's not even my favorite. The racial roulette was my favorite.
Oh,
that was
racial
literally
roulette.
That may be my favorite thing we've ever done.
I have a theory. I think the reason that the fanfictions are the most requested. Oh, jeez.
Oh, cool, great.
Fill the mug.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Yeah,
there's no
fill
message
it.
with it anyway.
Fill
Anyway.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is my theory on the fanfictions. Right? We all hate the fanfictions. Nobody here on the show likes hearing those. Right? Nobody does.
It's just so
I like
weird.
hearing it.
It's weird hearing yourself be put into sex scenes.
Time to put
And
your
it
mouth
was,
where our
but
balls
we
are.
were the ones that brought it on. So I don't know. There's something like ironically poetic about the fact that our darkest hour was brought on by ourselves.
You're not
It's
wrong.
his penis, and he can do whatever he wants with it.
Yeah. So a couple of people asking in the chat, when are we going to see the spoiler episode? That's not like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's
we don't ever do that fast.
Time.
Week 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Like after the rating, like real rating comes out.
Right.
Maybe a week
Like
after.
you have
that.
to think about when a regular a regular like patch came out, which gave us like 6 MSQs, like 6 quests. We waited like a month for everybody to catch up. This was an expansion which had like 100 quests. So like
it's gonna be a bit.
Plus you have to get 10 levels within that time. Like there's a lot of times if you're not doing all the side quests, you're gonna hit roadblocks. Not to mention everybody who had Raubon Extreme to deal with. There's no way that we're gonna have that spoiler episode within a month of the release. Like let's be real, guys. It's gonna be at least 2 months after the release, I would assume.
We should do an episode where we spin a wheel to determine what bit we bring back.
So that way we can be completely unprepared for whatever bed it lands on.
That's correct.
It can't be any worse than Nika trying to improv as a zombie.
That was rough.
Think of that. We don't
I still don't know what that was supposed to be.
We're gonna save Who's Fantasy for next time Nika says she has to miss an episode.
That's probably wise. Can we bring back?
Wait, you don't like embarrassing me?
We can do that on any old episode.
It's embarrassing to us, really.
It's not a challenge anymore. Is really, I think, the thing is that it's just
beating a dead horse.
Yeah,
beating a horse.
It was funny for the first year.
Wow, for a whole year. Jeez.
Ouch.
I know. I'm just saying mean things again.
T. Capelli demands to know if Ascalia survived being left in that desert.
I told him we have a sequel to that one, and he wants to know if we can read that one, but you're probably going to have to start a change.org petition in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
100,000 signatures, we read fan fiction.
I mean, to be honest, I think I'd probably prefer not to have to listen to it.
Not to ever find out.
Yeah, I'm okay. That's a mystery that I don't need solved, okay?
Yeah, because as of right now, in the fanfiction world, Ascalia is dead. Who wants to erase that canon?
Well, I might be dead. It's like Squall. No one actually knows.
Yeah, oh that's fine.
Clamp your god, you fucking moron!
Oh my god!
Yes,
we have that as a drop.
No,
I'm so happy.
We don't.
No, he says.
I'm very good with ventriloquism.
Impressions.
Right. Can I have a request, because I know that the action figure ended up not
getting lost,
not being real. But if someone could make it just in a not an action figure. It was a dick.
You geeks are so gullible.
There's a difference between dicks and action figures.
That is true.
Not for me.
What is there?
Oh my god, Ascalia, stop.
Oh, gross.
Whoa.
But no, is it possible that someone could make Juxta either a ventriloquist dummy of his character or himself?
Oh my god.
That would be the greatest thing in the world.
Aniro will go to desperate lengths to get his hand up Juxta's ass.
Oh, jeez.
I don't want to touch it. I'd want to make him bring it out in awkward social situations to terrify other people.
So you want me to bring out myself?
Yeah.
Yes, we want you to expose yourself.
And only talk through the dummy. Like, you have to maintain eye contact on the dummy, and you talk through the dummy.
Carletta says a Muppet for the Muppet.
It's actually, I think it's a Kurt Braunholer bit that I had heard recently.
I haven't heard Kurt Braunholer in years.
He was on a prank show where that's what they did. They made a ventriloquist dummy of him and set him up on blind dates, and he only talked through the puppet. And he said he scared. Like, there was a woman that he scared half to death. She was like deathly afraid of ventriloquist dummies.
Oh
right?
My god!
And her eyes just get really big, and she's like, "Please, just talk to me." And he's like the producers in his ear going, "Under no circumstances will you fucking talk to her." It's one of the fucking craziest stories I've ever heard.
Did you ever see him on Bunk?
No, I didn't.
Oh my god, it's this game show that he did where it was just this ridiculous game show making fun of all the stereotypes that you see on game shows, where every contestant got to pick their own prize as long as it was a completely selfish and self-absorbed prize.
Oh, I like
you could
that.
do nothing for charity.
I like that.
So good.
That's funny. Anyway, all right. So if you want to support the show, Patreon.com/Limit Break Radio is how you do that. I want to thank everyone who does currently support Limit Break Radio. You guys have ensured that we're able to continue producing the amount of content that we do. And you guys gave us basically the running to be able to do Final Encountercast, as well as that grew into Checkpoint Radio. And you know what? You guys get to reap the benefits of all that. I got to stream last night for the first time in a long time. And a lot of the comments that I was getting is like, "Oh, you're so far behind. You're so far behind in the MSQ. Oh
You're
my
some
god,
kind of moron. You know that?
And you know,
You're a bitch.
It's true.
You're not funny.
Stop it."
I'm just
When it's like after
the comments,
after just like 4 in a row, it's just like okay, it's getting a little bit much. But it's really like, if you want to know where my time is being spent, it's making sure that you guys get 2 additional pieces of content now every single week if you are subscribed to the Limit Break Radio podcast feed. And I mean, like, if you think about it, like, we could actually we could have a new piece of content almost 5 days a week at this point. Like a brand one new piece of content 5 fucking days a week. And like, we got here almost by accident. And I think that that's pretty amazing. So I just wanted to kind of, praise you guys for how much you have enabled us to really kind of chase this opportunity that is Checkpoint and Final Encountercast as well.
You have done well.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what an audience can kind of come together and do. And we've said it before, and I'll say it again. But with Checkpoint, we're really trying to do right by you guys. Where these shows, we have a lot of control. We have we definitely lead with our reverence on both Limit Break Radio and Final Encountercast. Checkpoint is something that is, since it's got a wider reach and it's got more potential people that listen to it, it's a little bit more reined in. It's a little bit more,
not to mention there's a government agency who can shut us down if we say something we can't say.
That is true. But the thing is that the way that we make that show, the way that we approach making that show is, the same way that we approach Final Encountercast. And, we are slightly jaded gamers. We are slightly cynical. And you do end up getting that perspective with Checkpoint as well. So, again, I do want to thank you for all of your support. And if you want to continue, see this kind of content continue to grow, and you want to help us continue to grow as an organization, head on over to patreon.com/limitbreakradio and pledge whatever is comfortable for your budget. Kahlo, what is the status of your postcards from Eorzea?
Oh, boy, guys. Now, here's the thing. All right. I'm pretty sure that credit cards have already been processed. So if you're a Patreon, you're getting this card whether you want it or not. And this is the Skuro card.
Oh, no.
No. Apple Nectar outdid herself. This is such a terribly beautiful nightmare.
You ever seen a grown man naked?
No, you're right. You are absolutely right. It is a grown man naked. And all of you are getting one as well. So look forward to that. This thing is terrifying, and it will haunt you.
You did confirm that all credit cards have been charged?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that would be up to our.
Yeah, you probably should have checked that before announcing what it was.
Well, that, and we're assuming that these things go through the post office, which, based on the content, maybe they won't. So
you're not allowed to mail porn.
Apparently
not.
Can't you mail? You just see a butt. It's not like full frontal.
If you want to get a preview of it, you can check out our Instagram.
Why would you want to? This is a picture of Skuro's butt.
Well, this isn't, but you can just kind of get an idea of what you can.
Remember, I said there was a host that was going to sort of be like co-starring in this, and the Instagram picture gives you a little hint of who it is.
There you go.
There
you go. So anyway,
a little hint. The host name. That's your little hint. Jesus.
Hey, some of our listeners are really dumb. Okay,
you just like mushroom stamped him with that little hint.
Gosh.
In fact, some of them might even be retarded and/or autistic.
Kahlo, master of subterfuge and subtlety. Good job.
And saloming.
And saloming.
Did that joke make it on air? Does anyone have any idea what that means?
I don't think so. I don't think it did. But
oh my god.
Anyway,
long story short, Kahlo thinks it's pronounced slaloming.
Yeah, Kahlo doesn't know what's
a word I've never seen before.
Slalom.
How have you never seen the word slalom before?
I don't know
I'm sorry, it was never one of my vocabulary words. Okay.
Do you not watch the Olympics?
I've watched the Olympics and I still have no idea what that is.
Kahlo, you're white.
The Olympics for like women's volleyball.
You're white and you live in a place that has snow. I refuse to accept that you've never seen slalom written on a piece of fucking paper. That's not true. Yeah.
People just say skiing.
Yeah.
Well, the slalom is an event where you have to ski between the two different colored flags.
Yeah, I don't watch skiing.
Watch skiing. Watch
I'm not
skiing.
watching skiing.
Wow.
I'm more likely to watch curling before skiing.
Okay,
I'm sorry, curling.
Here's the point. You knew what curling was and how to spell it.
Skiing and salami are two very different things. So maybe you should look into salaming. Salamying.
Just
salamying, that I could get into.
You know what? Just go catch salmon and be done with it. Anyway, we also had the Teespring event campaign, whatever that is. 29 people bought shirts, and we're actually.
What did you say the profit was for us on those?
We got like $170.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Yay!
We're gonna spend it on beer. So
I miss beer.
They should arrive at your doorsteps next week.
We're actually we've already been getting tweets back of people who have been getting them.
Mine yet?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Dude, no one wants to deliver to Flint.
It's because it takes actually an additional week for them to print onto a 5XL.
Oh.
I guess that's fair.
If you didn't take it, I was going for that one.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry. That was brutal.
That cut deep.
That one was...
Well, yeah, Dodoy.
That one was... That was even a little bit mean for me. Anyway, let's check out what's going on in FF14 news.
This is a limit-breaking news update.
So over the past week, Square Enix has been initiating a daily purge. At a designated time, all inhabitants will be forcefully logged out, and for a period of 10 minutes, no logins were possible.
I was really hoping that they would just let us PvP in all zones and we could just kill people and knock them offline.
Oh, yeah.
When you said the purge, that was what I thought of first.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's
their character.
That's neat. Yes.
What? It doesn't need to be that extreme. You could just knock them offline.
Fuck you.
No, I want
literally, you are playing for your right to stay online.
I want real stakes.
Well,
and a steak. I'm super hungry. A1 sauce?
We just ate.
Like
not even an hour ago.
Yeah, not even 40 minutes ago.
Yeah, but it was a Jimmy John sandwich. Those things are tiny. That's like a snack.
No, they're not.
They're actually not, and this actually shows how much of a problem this is.
Yep, at a designated time, all inhabitants are taken out for 10 minutes. This was done to help alleviate heavy congestion and to reduce the queue time on high-population servers. That has actually changed for our server now. We're back to normal.
It's only Balgreg that has to deal with that.
Yep, so it's not the entire gay center, yeah, just the two of them still. So you'll be in an instance, and all of a sudden, two people DC in the final boss, and you're like, oh, they're on problem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, way to go.
But here's the thing, is that it actually worked. The congestion loads on servers that they implemented this on originally, yes, you actually were able to log in better throughout the day. So, I mean, not right after it happened. No, it was terrible. But within a few hours, no, you could log in fine. So.
Yep, I finally logged in for the first time last night without a queue. The first time.
On Sargatanis?
Yep.
I still get 15 to 20.
Yep, usually I had one time of no queuing last night.
Boom.
Oh, Cass's Trash is going to destroy our tip jar.
No!
God damn it. Thanks, Cass.
We worked so hard on that.
Oh, that's a heavy one. Oh, no! Look at it go!
Oh, man, we lost so many.
That's really funny. There's so many different animations depending on how many things fall in there.
It's like, this will take me back to Pogs and Slammers and stuff. This is craziness.
Yeah.
Speaking of cool animations like that, Nariko Stars actually started work on our new cheer motes that we're going to have eventually.
That's
I'm sorry,
right.
What?
We're getting new cheer motes.
Yeah, I decided to make a financial decision of an adult nature, and I decided to buy commission cool little cheer mote animations.
Wow.
I've gotten to hear about some of these.
Yeah, you're gonna. Can you tell us about one of them?
They feature Escalia.
Prominently.
All of them?
All of them.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
quite prominently.
This is not okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Oh, you're going to love it.
Oh, my. I know what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do.
If you like fan fictions, let's just say you'll like these cheer motes.
Can we?
They're going to be contributing to the boob fund.
Is Twitch going to allow for this? Is Twitch going to be okay with this?
What do you mean?
It's not too explicit, is it? I mean, you say fanfic, and then I'm like, oh God, what the fuck?
I don't understand. Can you not have vaginas on the screen?
No. No. You really you can't.
BRB, got to get in touch with Nariko Star.
All right, well, I've just so everybody knows, I've commissioned pictures for my own use then.
Of me?
Hey, you're a chick.
Sometimes.
You're hot in the game.
Fair.
Sometimes.
No, always in game. Ass.
Well, I mean, you had this boyish haircut for a little while.
I did get rid of the boy cut for this picture.
Yeah.
I will say that on some of our headers, maybe on I think the one that's on Twitch has not been updated, or I'm sorry, not on Twitch, but on Twitter has not been updated in quite a while. I don't think you're actually on that one. I think that was
really.
Yeah, I think that was at a point where you were not logging in.
I remember that because we weren't getting paid.
Yeah, that's right.
And then once this talk of money came, and
suddenly
crawling back.
Yeah, suddenly Mr. No Show is Mrs. Show Up. to
I
work.
remember having the conversation too. Since he wants to come back, do we pay him or do we make him wait a year?
Dude, I remember having that conversation too.
What header are we referring to?
It wouldn't really be fair to give it that much because, you know, he hasn't been around.
And yet we did, because we are generous and benevolent gods.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what it feels
So
like.
predictable.
The first part in an ongoing documentary series by Danny O'Dwyer of GameSpot sets out to speak to various developers about the troubled history and sordid past of Final Fantasy XIV 1.0.
Boy, this seems like a common topic these days.
Doesn't it, though? Some of the devs he talks to include localization lead Koji Fox and engineering lead Hideyuki Kasuga. The documentary is in 3 parts, all of which can be found on YouTube. We started watching these.
Yeah, it's actually really very good.
Oh, it's outstanding.
The no-clip stuff?
This is the no-clip stuff.
Oh, okay.
I actually didn't. I didn't know that you were talking. He's from GameSpot. I didn't know
Danny
that.
O'Dwyer originally,
He was the host and producer for a few of the shows that they did online.
Oh, okay. I was never that invested in GameSpot stuff.
Yeah, that's what this is.
So
it's really good. You should watch this.
It is very, very well done. And the thing is I mean, like. And to their credit, you know, to NoClip's credit, they actually cite the fall and rise of FF14, the Speakers
of Hylian, yeah.
Speakers Network documentary series, because that is also very good. They did a very good job chronicling, you know, what happened. But
yeah,
this is actually like NoClip got access to the devs.
Yeah, how they got these interviews is beyond me.
He used to work for GameSpot. He has connections.
Yeah, that's true.
I think, was this, am I wrong, or was this particular one crowdfunded? I mean, I think NoClip in general is a crowdfunded thing.
Yeah, they have a Patreon and all that.
Oh, they do? Okay, because I know...
the guy who made them, Danny O'Dwyer, yeah, he has a Patreon. So
Okay.
I think that's what funded it.
Okay, yeah, because I remember hearing about it after it got funded, and people were really excited about it. And then the speakers thing started to come out, and I was really impressed with that. And I was like, damn, they're going to really have to bring it if they're going to do better than speakers.
Right.
And then the fact that, first of all, the fact that they cited it, like, awesome.
Yep,
like,
good on
right
them.
off the rip. Like, that's so, like, it's such a little piece of community respect and support, like a nod to, like, the homegrown shit that I really appreciated that, especially because we're not featured in it.
Yeah, because we don't get mentioned at all.
Yeah, see, like that's the thing.
It's 'cause we're not an
We've never
informational
done
source.
anything like this, though.
Yeah, but we're still important parts of the community.
We're homegrown.
We demand recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's bullshit.
Not for anything in particular, just in general. We want
Just
to be
for existing and playing the game.
Well, if they do a fourth segment on like the penis length of a Mikote, then they can start citing us.
Look, all
I
I'm
would
saying
hope
is,
so.
how hard is it to just add in at some place and then there's these assholes? Like, that's it. That's all I want.
Like,
I don't think it's asking for much.
No, I mean, like, you know, they could have come and talked to us for like 45 minutes. Like, that would have
Yeah.
been, I think, pretty acceptable.
Yeah, but would
It's
they
longer
want
than
to?
any of the actual segments that they uploaded to YouTube. And I just think that would have been fun.
It'd have been a good time. I don't know why they would want to.
No one would.
It's like, we got funded on Patreon through this. Let's throw that away.
I mean, easily our backstory is just as interesting as the development of 1.0. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, our
And
backstory
to
is
be
pretty
fair,
interesting.
to be fair, you've probably heard that backstory like 800 times
Yeah,
by this
oh,
point.
yeah.
How many times have you heard the backstory of LBR?
Yeah.
And you know what? The difference
Only
is that our
400.
1.0 was
Yeah.
popular.
Oh.
Yikes.
But the thing is our 1.0 had to do with 11, which was also popular.
Well, and again, this video series does actually contextualize 11.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the greater
And still
scheme of
doesn't
things.
mention us?
Yeah, exactly. See, Nika gets it.
Scythe wants to know if our information on Mikote dick sizes has been peer reviewed yet.
I've touched other Mikote dicks.
Yeah,
Does that count?
Juxta's my peer and he reviewed my dick. Does that count?
Oh, gross. Anyway, yeah, go check those out. You can find it if you just search NoClip and FFXIV. You'll find it pretty easily.
All right,
so
guys, buckle up. Here we go. All right, this isn't news per se, but what with us being who we are here at Limit Break Radio, this is not something we could let pass under our radar.
Couldn't ignore it.
No. A thread popped up over at good old r/FFXIV entitled "A Plea to the User Base to Stop Abusing Kugane."
It's pronounced Kugani.
Kugane. I'm sorry.
I thought it's
Kugane.
Kugane.
Cuck-Ann. I'm sorry. Cuck-Ann.
Cuck-Ann. There you go.
Cuck-Ann. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It reads as follows.
Hang on. So, listen, before we start into this, okay, like, we know that this is probably a troll, right?
We're aware.
Like, we're aware.
If it's not...
No. But it's still funny.
It's either a professional level troll or this person needs to be put in a place.
That's the thing, is that it's a really good troll.
It's so good.
Why can't our trolls be this good?
And of course, this post basically follows Poe's law.
Yeah.
Where, if you argue something to its absolute sincerest, it becomes indiscernible from sarcasm.
Yeah, at some point you can't tell whether it's trolling or anymore because you've taken it so seriously.
So, all right, you want to... Have you got a good racist voice worked up for this, Escalia?
No, I cannot imagine that the person who wrote this is actually Japanese.
Well, you know what? I'm going to help you because I feel like this might be something
I'm pretty sure the person that wrote this is a weeb.
Oh, thank you for this.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna set the mood, right? Like, and you're gonna be able to find the right voice for this. I think.
This is a sensitive topic for me and many other players in the game. So let's please try to be civil. I'm asking the player base, most of it, to stop hanging out in Kugane and flooding the shop chat with memes and harassment. Kugane represents a rich culture that is important to some of us and should be respected. It is an endgame hub designed for people like me, people who identify as otaku, who have a deep appreciation for Nihongo and want to honor it in game.
Nihongo means Japanese.
For Nihon.
Thank you.
Please, go take your toxicity to Ragar's Reach and leave us alone. Kugane is what we've always wanted. A true place for anime and manga fans to live our dream. It's a safe haven for real fans of Nihongo culture and art. Not a place to spam Donald Trump-san memes and talk about sex.
Arigato, racist.
Please respect
the
Kugane.
son in there was just fucking incredible.
Please respect Kugane and just leave it. Do not take this from us. Do not ruin the beauty and majesty and history that Yoshida-san has given us. It is deeply upsetting to me and many other true fans of Nihongo art, architecture, and history. Thank you, Stormbloods.
Nihongo also only means the language.
Nihongo.
Not sure what you would use.
Nihongo.
You know what, Nika, that actually I think fits in.
I think you're right, but I think you're right.
So was that an appropriate voice for you there, Nate? Does that work?
I think that worked.
All right, great.
I mean, it went
pictured
really
it in,
well.
like one of the real school,
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be an
weeb voice.
It should have been an otaku voice, but I don't have the otaku voice down. Like offensive Japanese voice I can do, and that music was perfect for it.
But I mean, what's an otaku? Is this close to an otaku voice? I don't know what that one would be. What does a fucking otaku sound? Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
It's some mixture of like this heavy breathing and Mandark from Dexter's Laboratory.
Okay, that's fair. I just don't know how to project like terrible facial hair and body odor in a voice.
Just pretend you're a Redditor.
So the question I actually have about this, because obviously the whole thing is questionable, but specifically this kind of goes to Nika and to Escalia. They say it is an endgame hub designed for people like me, not a raider, but an otaku. What is an endgame hub designed for an otaku exactly?
It's the jumping puzzle tower. That's the endgame.
That you're not wrong. That is like the only thing that sets Kugane apart.
4.5 hours on that fucking jump.
You know what? You're the problem. It's you jumping all over the place instead of sitting down on the floor and drinking your tea like a respectable
otaku.
Also, it's funny because, yes, this is obviously heavily based on Japan, but it's not Japan.
Yeah, it's still fantasy Japan.
It's fantasy East. So, there are some Chinese, there are some, other Asian cultures thrown in, and some just, total fantasy made-up bullshit.
It's like saying that Gotham City is what Chicago actually is. It's just it's based off of a mixture of Chicago and New York, but it's still fake.
And there's a lot of Japanese names, obviously, because they're Japanese developers, and so, but it's not Japan.
No matter how much you want it to be.
Especially because it says anime and manga culture, and there's nothing everything about Kugane is very beautiful and Japanese in feel, but
threw up in my mouth.
What about it has a manga or anime feel?
Next to nothing.
Nothing.
There's no high school in it.
I understand the people.
Not yet.
I understand the people who. I mean, if I'm going to take this as seriously as I can, I understand the people who want to like respect and honor the ancient Japanese culture. I totally get that. But people who are like otaku with an appreciation of manga and anime, like where are they getting that?
I'm speaking American. It's the only language I understand.
Let's be frank. Once you put this world into a video game, the talk about respecting it as a culture has kind of gone out the window, hasn't it?
Yeah, but the fact that you're even placating it for a moment of going like, I understand why people would want to respect it. Why? It's a fucking video game. Like, why? Why would you want to have other people, like that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, I understand again that this is a troll post and that
and by the way, taking it as seriously as I can allow myself.
Yes, idiot.
By the way, props to you, Stormblood son.
Yeah, that was very good.
You nailed it.
It was very good. But no, like honestly, when when dealing with someone who's not connected to reality fundamentally is when you start having these conversations about like, oh, well, you should respect this digital space. Like, what are you actually talking about? What do you want people to respect? Like, this was ostensibly responding to people jumping on top of one of the roofs in Kugane. Like, this is stupid.
Is that what it was? That's what I was going to ask. What is it responding to? Like, who is not respecting the town? Like, I've been in Kugane. My home point is Kugane. I'm always in Kugane, and nothing not respectful is happening. So that's what
like jumping on the roof, like
Donald Trump memes and sex talk. Not respectful.
I have not seen any of that on our server. Maybe that's just on.
That just sounds like the second or third day of an expansion. That's all that sounds like.
Idleshire wasn't any better for that.
No, it does. I mean,
but Idleshire didn't have this rich and diversified culture to draw upon.
Oh, good.
They had goblins. Goblins have a
culture too. No, they're just trash.
Wow.
Literal
Idleshire
garbage.
was Flint.
That's being
actually, no, actually,
you could drink the water in Idleshire.
Nika and I figured out what the analogy is. Because Nika, go ahead and tell everyone what you told me when you were going through your Little Alamigo quests.
Oh, I can't even remember the exact words. Okay, my thing was I was doing the final. There's a level 70 quest after you beat the story where you go to Little Alamigo and try to convince people to come and help out in Alamigo and rebuild.
Spoilers.
And there's a bunch of people there, and like Little Alamigo, like I mean we've all been in Little Alamigo, right? It's a bunch of tents in a cave.
Yeah, it's a shithole.
And there's a bunch of people that are like, we don't want to leave. And I was like, why wouldn't you want to leave? You live in a tent.
And my response was, Nika, you grew up in Flint.
Yeah, but she left Flint.
Yeah, no,
I did.
But you always like anywhere. If you were raised in a small town, like know how that small town mentality of like I can't leave.
It's a hive mind.
It really is.
Like I mean, and like I broke the mold, and honestly, like my couple close friends all managed to get out. But when I go back to Flint, I am constantly at risk of running into somebody I know because literally everybody who grows up there stays there, or at least in the surrounding towns. Like I was saying, like the high school I went to is the same high school my parents went to. Like we had some of the same teachers. Like
that's weird.
Yeah,
that's definitely
no.
Weird.
There's a bar in my town that is solely occupied by people who were in my graduating class. I'm convinced. I have never once walked into that bar and not had someone recognize me who I have no interest in talking to.
Is it Moose Winooski's?
It is not Moose Winooski's.
Okay,
that is exclusively people 65 and up.
That is probably my favorite name for a bar.
That's a great bar name. Moose Winooski's is great. No, it's Renshaw. Which I think Renshaw was there when you were still in.
Yeah, I've been to Renshaw. I don't think it was actually when I was there. But,
okay.
Anyway.
Ryoku says some people just prefer living in a small town and don't care for the noise of a city. That's fair, but Flint is a shithole, just like Little Alamigo.
Yes.
But the thing is that like Little Alamigo, the person in the quest is like, some of us we left 20 years ago. There are kids now who have never known Alamigo. There are old people now who can't make the trip. And like when you think about a real life analogy of it, like, yeah, you've grown up in the town, you don't know anything else. Why would you want anything else?
The analogy holds up, is what she's saying.
It does. Yeah. And when Aniro threw that at me, I was like, oh.
Hold on. There's a big difference between Little
They don't have the
Alamigo.
means to leave.
Well, you're there to help them have the means to leave is the thing. And the thing is that they kind of, a lot of people, you do have some people that are on board with coming with you, but for the most part, the majority of them are like, why would we go to Alamigo? Like Little Alamigo's all we've known.
Let me tell you why. I'm going to tell you exactly why. So that they still have NPCs in that zone. That's the unfortunate truth of it. Is they can't have all the NPCs disappear.
Don't break the immersion, man.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, it is still pretty effective narrative point right there. Though.
Lloyd FF11 would like to know if Flint was a shithole before the water thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up in the suburbs of Flint, which was, arguably a little bit better than Flint. But like, I could walk 5 minutes, be in Flint, and like hear gunshots.
If you lived in Michigan. If you lived in Michigan, hearing that Flint's water was poisonous was the least surprising thing you'd heard all week.
Yeah. If you want an idea of how bad and how long Flint has been bad, go watch Roger and Me. That was made in what, like 1985, 86? Yeah. And
I mean, like I've always said, even since before all of this, like when they list like the top 10 cities in the United States for highest murder rate, Flint and Detroit are in the top 3.
Every time.
Every single time. Anyway, so
Michigan.
Yeah.
Like Michigan has so many
fun place to live.
We have so many nice places and so many awful places.
That's true. Anyway, if you want to call the show, Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. We'd love to hear from you. I'm going to start off taking our first call here from Kaon Valian of Behemoth. What's going on, Kaon?
Hi.
Hi.
You're not going to use my real name this time?
I mean,
you didn't give it to us, so no.
Well, he did.
But
I did.
I was just giving you the benefit of anonymity if you wanted it, but thanks for calling.
Nobody knows that name.
Aaron Edge? I mean, if they listen to Final Encounter Cast, they would.
Oh, I remember.
It's Aaron.
Yeah, I wouldn't have remembered otherwise.
The Edge.
My parents are the one that died in the car accident, not me.
Yeah, okay.
We forget sometimes because we don't hear from you.
Yeah.
And we don't care.
It's easy to mix it up. So, anyway, what's up, man?
Well, I saw the Stormblood Collector's Edition thing. I have it, if you guys wanted to talk about it, but I also wanted to shit on the 14 community a little bit.
We do that every week.
Why would you ever want to do that?
Floor is yours.
Take it away.
Because they're garbage.
Agreed.
The 14 community is collectively a giant vagina, okay? Those...
Wait, what's wrong with vaginas, man? Vaginas are tough. Punch a vagina, punch a penis, that's a different story.
How about pansy?
No.
Does that work?
The problem is that it's a giant vagina, and when it's a giant vagina, you can't get off in it anymore.
I just want to...
What if you put your entire body there? How giant is a giant vagina?
Can I just quote...
like 32 feet tall.
Can I just quote Nika? Can I just quote Nika here for a second? And she just said punch a vagina. Like
punch a vagina and punch a penis. Which one is tougher?
Oh my god! Drop. We need that drop.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
So anyway, from the very beginning, Raubon, and this is the reason why video game developers get away with this kind of shit, with bringing out an early access game that doesn't work right away, is that half of the people are bitching, but they won't go actually say anything useful about it to SE, and the other half is telling that half before that they should get over it and that it's early access. Or I even heard one person say that this wasn't even a full release at early access.
Yeah, it's funny. Like,
yes, it was.
They talk about it like it's just early access. I'm like, that's funny because they advertised it as being early access to the game and made me pay $20 more for it.
Yeah, it was the full release of the game, no matter what. And there are people saying, "Oh, I even heard another streamer, I won't say his name, I guess, say that go do other content." What other content is there to do if you're not going to go play Red Major Samurai?
Ooh, can we take guesses?
We're gonna have to go do old content anyway. Or what? Do the new Fates in one zone? Fates aren't fucking new. They're just new monsters. That's it.
Dude, and I mean, I agree with you because like saying go do other content or go do non-broken content while you wait
it's a
for
cop-out.
It is. That's a huge cop out.
I tried to do other content and I still got disconnected from it.
Yeah,
there
and
you
then
go.
single player instances got broken, and I think Red Mage and Samurai both have single player instances.
Yep, at the very beginning.
Of their content,
So it said I
right?
couldn't do
At the-
Raubon, so I was
their
like,
first
okay.
thing.
Yep. So I
So-
went to go do that. Didn't work.
And then once all that cleared up and everybody was like, oh, see, they fixed it. Oh, it's not even release day. It's fixed now. You get into the later parts of the story, and I won't spoil anything, but there's a trial that people already want to nerf, like Steps
Oh
of
my
Faith.
God.
What?
It's already on the official forums that they want to nerf it.
There are no
Why?
trials worth nerfing. I don't know which one you're
Get better at the game. Everybody that's listening to this or will ever fucking hear this, please just read
Get good.
tooltips. Look up a fucking guide and get good, because this is ridiculous. I guarantee you that there are people from other communities and MMOs that look at people bitching about all of this fucking stupid shit on our forums or on Twitter or on a video. I'm sure there are videos out there. There's got to be videos. And they're all just looking at them like, what the fuck is wrong with them?
I'm willing to bet it's the level 70 dungeon that people are referring
talking
to.
about the last
MSQ?
Edge?
And it is.
Yeah.
It is.
What? That was easy.
I will be really upset with Square Enix if they don't just come out and say, no, we're not going, because all the content so far has been more heavy in mechanics and less dependent on DPS. We've seen it already.
And that's what we've been asking for. So
Right.
why are people
That's
doing
what
it?
everybody's been asking for, and now they want to nerf a fight that will actually teach you how to be a little bit better at the game.
Well, and
it's ridiculous.
Like Yoshi this time around, he's kind of made no bones about it. He's kind of said, don't ask us about difficulty.
Right.
We don't want to hear it.
Well, and you know,
But, like, do people not remember the 1.0 final battle? Like, I know a lot of people didn't play that. Apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I remember
the final
it.
battle of 1.0 was hard as
It was.
fuck. I spent like 8 hours of Extra Life that year
Yeah.
just trying to do that battle. It was hard, and then once you beat it, it was fucking like you felt so good.
And
this trial's not that hard. I don't know why anyone would be bitching.
And that's I'm gonna you know what, I'm gonna echo Yoshi P's sentiments there. Like, stop fucking complaining about difficulty.
Yeah,
like
stop
I
talking to
think
us about it.
And I think that Square Enix taking the approach of, we're just gonna not listen to any commentary about the difficulty, probably smart.
The
at this
difficulty
point.
is what it is.
It is. Here's the thing, and Kayan, I'm really glad that you kind of brought this point up today, because this is something that actually clicked in my own head while I was watching the documentary, right? The No Clip documentary. And again, I really recommend you go take time to really understand some of the psychology that went into A Realm Reborn and a lot of the factors that existed in 1.0's development that led to what a disaster that game was. I think it's important. I think it's important to both remember that as we move forward, especially into this new expansion. But there's something that Yoshi P says directly in there, and that was that the fans that were critical and honest were helpful, because it was that feedback that helped them move forward with what they thought the most people would end up wanting. And that ended up, becoming A Realm Reborn. And so, I'm paraphrasing his point, but it kind of struck a chord with me, because, over the last couple of weeks and in the run up to Stormblood, we've had a lot of criticism thrown our way about, like, well, why do you still play this game if you don't like it? Like, why do you still do this show if you don't like it so much? Why don't you just shut the fuck up? And let me explain something to you, okay? Because in a environment and in a community where there is creativity involved, and you're talking to and about the work of creative people, speaking as someone who is creative and who needs to work off of feedback, it does absolutely no good to continue to placate someone when you feel their product is starting to slip. Doesn't matter what the situation is. If you have the consumer role in the relationship, you have to offer up honest feedback and criticism. If we came out and placated Square Enix and made excuses for them when we felt that they failed or they could have done better by FF14, then I think we do a real disservice to the entire game and its community. Because when something goes right, when we praise something, when we like something, I think you can tell that that's genuine. Our opinions aren't bought and sold. We've never been, because a lot of times it's a reflexive defensive move on the part of a content creator not to want to really criticize what they're making content about. Because the creator of that content may not like it. And then they're less willing to work with you. They're less willing to give you things. They're less willing to, I don't know, potentially sponsor your stream. Okay? So when you have that, and that hurts your bottom line if you're a media organization. If you're a show like ours, that will end up hurting your bottom line. It ends up hurting your appeal. So why when people hear the show, they really don't react very well to it. But it's a necessary thing to be able to look at something and go, honestly, like, this struck a chord with me or it fell completely flat. I don't think that we've been that critical of anything that 6-7 months down the line after the sheen has worn off, after its old hat, that people don't eventually end up getting exasperated with or tired of. And that's just our opinion. And if you don't like it, I understand why people maybe who catch the show for the first time may not like it off the rip. Because they're like, well, they're just sitting around bagging the shit out of the game that they ostensibly are supposed to love. But it comes from a place of wanting to provide honest feedback and productive feedback and not hide it behind flowery, emotionally receptive language. Strip that out, because that's bullshit. No one needs that. I don't care if you're a creative person and you have a delicate ego. No one needs that shit. The feedback is the thing that's important. How we deliver it, you may not agree with, but the feedback is important. Anyway, Kayan, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Before we let you go, you got any final words?
Yeah, I do want to say I have been listening. I've been listening since 2014 FanFest, I think, when I met you guys there.
That's what's up.
And there's definitely a clear difference between what you guys do and what a lot of other people do with their podcasts, and in terms of providing for the actual podcast listener, because I'm usually not here. I usually listen to you guys during the week at work or whatever. I've checked out Checkpoint on the Houston station, I think. A week ago or something like that. And when I heard that, I just thought to myself, if I actually listened to the actual radio and I didn't listen to it on my phone, and I was there and I heard that tagline, that esports and gaming news, I'd stop and be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this doing on the radio?
Exactly.
You know? So I think that's a really exciting thing that you guys are doing.
Oh,
and,
thanks, man.
And I really appreciate the work you guys do.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Even though you guys killed my parents.
I was going to say, I feel kind of bad that his parents got driven off of a cliff now.
I know, right?
Are you guys going to go through the Stormblood CE stuff, or because I think some of it's shitty.
It's all shitty.
I think I've already expressed my disinterest pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want,
the statue is cool and the art book is cool.
Yeah, I think if you want like general overview of how we feel about collector's editions,
pretty dumb.
You can listen to this week's Final Encounter cast.
Yeah, it'll let you know how we feel about it.
But I mean, like, yeah, I think
the chicken knife is really awesome.
It's a little light.
The digital stuff was cute.
The digital stuff is negligible, but I mean, if you're paying for that physical stuff, I don't know. I think that you should expect more. I was not that impressed. It was really you're just paying the figurine,
cool,
really.
The Zeno statue was cool.
I mean, but it was cooler in the display case that they had it in E3.
See, that was the problem. Is like when I went out to E3 and I saw it in this awesome display case with like the graphical effects. And I'm like, okay, well, I want that with my statue.
Exactly.
My thing is that I really like the cloth map, but because we still have that like foggy part in the middle, it's kind of weird, and I really hope they give us an updated one at 5.0 with the Garlean Empire uncovered.
You're right. Yeah, that would be really awkward to hang that map with this big clouded out section in the middle.
It's like the left side has land, the right side has land, and middle is just clouded out.
I'm not usually one for like the
Build
cloth
your
maps.
own empire.
The only exception that where I've ever like lost my shit over a cloth map was with the Morrowind when they had like the Vardenfell cloth map. That was awesome.
I knew you were going to say that.
I couldn't resist. It was so cool.
Kay and Valen of Behemoth, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. If you want to call Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715. We invite your calls and limitbreakradio.com/Discord if you want to call in on Discord. Yeah, we invite your calls and we want to hear from you. How are you enjoying Stormblood? Is Stormblood... Wow.
Yes!
More... All
Love
right.
that mug.
So we also want to hear whether or not you think Stormblood lived up to the hype of the hype that Square Enix was trying to drum up for it. So we'll eventually get to that here on Limit Break Radio today.
Wow.
Refill the mug.
Yay!
Refill it.
Dude, this tip jar is great.
Yeah, this is going to be... I feel like this is going to be like the first couple of weeks of when we had the on-screen donations, where it's just like we're getting derailed every 30 minutes.
Yeah, but I love it.
Okay, just be glad that I set the little bit things to a minimum of 5, because if there was a minimum of 1 bit, there'd be 5 times as many as these.
That's true.
That'd be crazy.
So you're welcome. I'm smart.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Now, bitch!
Fair
enough. Still you.
Nero, do you ever wonder for people who listen to Checkpoint if there's like this level of culture shock when they hear it and they're like, wait, how come they're not cursing like sailors and just being blatantly rude and offensive for no reason?
Yeah, and that's the thing is that like people have got to remember that, we've got 10 years worth of comfort and, finding a lane in the FF14 community. We really just brought that same attitude over to Final Encountercast. But this is like with Checkpoint, it's a totally different approach because we're not just talking to the people inside of the gaming community that we think are cool or have the opinions that we have, which is sort of like the approach that we take with LBR and FEC, where it's like, fuck you if you can't take a joke, right?
Right.
You can't fully take that approach when you're on the radio, at least not yet. Like, we're only 21 episodes deep, and you have to earn that. Like, we didn't hit the reset button with Final Encountercast, right? Like, Final Encountercast was a grown extension of Limit Break Radio.
Right.
Checkpoint Radio, we've had to hit the reset button on because we're reaching out to a whole new set of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you've got to be conscious of the way that you're presenting yourself, your product. And, once we get to the point where, we have leverage, I think that is when you'll probably start seeing a little bit more of our humor injected in.
We're not going to be dropping the F-bomb.
No,
you just can't do that.
Yeah, you gotta play by the FCC's rules. But I mean, in terms of, because the thing is I'm just as cynical and sarcastic.
Yeah.
On that show as I am here. My opinion, my attitude doesn't really change that much.
No, not at all.
I just don't say fuck or taint as much.
Or tell people to get Hulk AIDS.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're right. You can't tell people to get A's in the air.
Yeah.
They'll probably get mad about that.
Yeah, then generally don't.
They get mad about it anyway. But
but then they can do stuff about it.
Yeah, Dadoy.
See, like most people, the most people who got mad about that comment didn't even hear it. Like, they didn't even bother to look it up for the context.
True.
And
he just said AIDS, and that's a bad thing.
It really is. Like, they just heard the description of the thing that I said, watched the person that I said it about, paint themselves as a victim, and then sat around and judged me for something that they never even bothered to look up.
Not all of our jokes when they get taken in the wrong light. Row Lives Matter is another one.
Sloppy.
I mean, yeah, we did. We got a lot of people blocking us on Twitter from that one, and
good times.
and there are still like that whole group of FF14 folks. Just they have nothing to do with us. So
you're not wrong.
I'm not. That's not. I mean, I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong.
Stop complaining.
They're fucking dead weight. Like, any of those people that got pissed over that Row Lives Matter, it's not like they actually contribute anything meaningful.
They weren't watching to begin with.
Yeah. So fuck them. And that's, again, that's the attitude. Fuck you if you can't take a joke. Like, if you don't understand where the humor or the sensibility comes from for the show, like, that's okay. You don't have to. We're not... We don't make the show for you. We don't make the show for the people who don't get it. Like that's like, we make the show for us. And we've always said, like, if you like our humor and sensibility, like, that's great. You can support us and make sure that the show continues. But, like, we've never said, like, you, like, have to listen. Like, we're not trying to be community leaders or community figures or anything like that. Like, that's a projection that's put on us.
One of my favorite perspectives of a Nero's that I have is when he butts heads with someone who's, like, really helped contribute to the show, and they're like, but I give you money. He's like, thank you. And also, fuck you, I don't care.
Yeah, and that's really the thing is, like, you can support the show, but you can't use that as a threat because we don't care. And we're glad that you do, and we hope you'll continue to. But if you choose not to, you know what? I have shows that I loved for a long time that I eventually stopped watching because
it's okay. Like, that's okay though. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you decide tomorrow that you disagreed with something that we said, or you just want to stop listening, that's fine. We're not going to hold you up for, support or money or anything like that. Like, that's why we do the show the way that we do.
Chat's wondering if Juxta doesn't want to be the community troll. I think he already is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are you talking about, bro?
He doesn't want to be a because that would technically be a community figure. Oh, even if that figure is the troll, that's a community figure.
Well, again, like, I'm perfectly comfortable with people thinking the worst of me.
Yeah, wait, let's be community figures, but we get to pick what the title is.
Like,
you're the asshole.
Yeah,
you're the community asshole.
I'm fine with that.
You're the community drunk uncle.
Yeah.
Aww, you are an uncomfortable drunk uncle.
The one that touches us?
No.
Oh.
Touches you.
No, the one that spouts like shit you don't want to talk about at the family reunion. The one where it's like, hey, let me tell you what I think about the Trump administration. You're like, oh, God. Oh, God, Uncle Jim, why?
He's the uncle
I got to stop using real relatives' names.
He's the uncle that walks into your house and turns on the news, but immediately starts yelling at the news.
Yes.
Yes. Like, no one had the news on, Uncle Kenny. Stop. Like,
grab him by the pussy.
Well,
What?
I didn't know we actually had that drop.
Why do we have that?
I played like 3 times now.
Yeah, that's been a thing.
Okay.
But yeah,
why would we not have that drop?
It's true.
I should probably stop using actual uncles' names in there too.
Yeah, we got to stop using family members' names. Like, you could say any name; it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck you, Uncle Jim.
I'm gonna get.
Damn it!
I'm gonna get home. Exactly. I'm gonna get home. And my family's like, heard what you said. Like, you don't listen to my show. Knock it off.
That's the problem. And that, dude, you know what? That actually exemplifies the problem, because that is selective listening. That you're listening only to the parts that you want to hear. So it only paints a very selective picture. If your family actually ever only heard that part, they might actually get legitimately hurt,
upset.
Right?
Oh yeah. If that's like the first thing, like my aunt I gotta stop using family names. My aunt Genevieve, if it was the first time she'd ever heard the show, she might be mad about it.
Yeah.
Is that a real name?
No.
Oh, good job, idiot.
But yeah,
the first time, by the way, I was trying to say not a family member's name, and I just blatantly said a family member's name. I'm like, fuck. Even trying not to.
That was it the family member that you were referencing in the moment?
Sure was.
Wow.
Nailed it.
That's some interesting. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, if you want to call the show, Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. We'd like to hear from you and hear all about your Stormblood experiences. So let's talk about whether or not Stormblood is living up to the hype. Of course, we all went out to FanFest this year. We got to see the announcement of Stormblood firsthand. We've been following the development at all of the other subsequent Final Fantasy FanFests. We got to cover it at, I think there was a PAX somewhere in between there that they were probably at, and we also got to see its enormous lines out at E3 2017.
Boy, did we get to see those lines.
Well, that is all we got to experience with FF14 out at E3.
Let's be honest. E3 was just like hanging out with Shannon and Aya.
That's pretty much all it was. Yeah, kind of.
No, we saw Fusion.
Yeah, Fusion was in there too.
And Happy was there. I mean, we saw pretty much everyone.
I'm sorry.
Oh, good. I missed Happy. Whew, that was a close one.
And you know, I do want to. It's not. I don't mean to keep going back to this, but I do want to actually praise Fusion.
Come on,
I know.
don't be shitty.
I know it's something that we do not do very often here on Limit Break Radio, but. I really do want to say that he really does do a very good job with everything over at Gamer Escape, and very dedicated to what he does. And you know, a lot of these other FF14 shows that exist out there, they really do have this big problem with placating Square Enix. Like it's like they want something out of Square Enix.
Fusion was the only community person that I felt like we met who was like working easily as hard as we were.
Yes.
Like we were crazy busy at E3. And I think Fusion looked just as slammed.
I think a lot of that comes from, you know, time and experience too.
Yeah.
Where, you know, if after you've been doing this for so long, you know that Square Enix is going to do what they're going to do regardless of what you do. And you can placate them, you can do all the things that you think that they're going to want to do. Or want you to do, rather, and still never really see any kind of
benefit from
back-end benefit. Yeah.
Are you saying that you think Fusion might have turned the corner finally?
No, I think Fusion's actually known that score for a very long time. And I think that, you know, again, you can go back as far as him calling out the 20-some-odd hour AV fight to just, you know, I mean, I have a lot of respect for what Fusion does and what he brings to this community. And I agree, Escalia. I just wanted to, you know, just point out that he was working just as hard as any of us were. So shout out to Fusion and Gamer Escape for doing really good work and for, you know, for being honest. Like that's really the thing that I want to praise him for, is that Gamer Escape has always been, if nothing else, very honest. And even when I was working there, you know, I got to use the platform to voice my opinions, and I never, you know, that was never curbed or discouraged. So
when we saw Fusion there, we were kind of all like just like introducing. We were talking with a fan who was there, and he looks at me and he's like, "Weren't you on Pet Food Alpha for a little while?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was." He's like, "Huh?
Wait, you were?"
I was. Yeah, I was a host on Pet Food Alpha for a little bit.
Yeah.
Why?
Wait, really?
Yeah, I was for a little while.
Why did we let him on here?
I don't know.
It was like 3 episodes.
Because he lived in town.
It was like 3 episodes, and I got a free copy of Seekers of Adulin out of it. So.
Oh, nice.
What?
That's not bad.
I did.
So it was after us then, basically.
Okay. Well,
this was in the waning days of Pet Food Alpha.
Oh, look at look, Ganyman's in the chat. Look at that,
Ganyman.
All of that praise. And,
hi.
Hey.
And then they get summoned.
Yeah. I think the goblins are listening. Anyway, so let's talk about Stormblood and whether or not it lived up to the hype, because I think we've been thoroughly exposed to the hype. And
have we?
And now that we've been
to be fair though, we don't have Omega yet. We don't have the 20. We don't have Evilise though. That's where a lot of the hype is coming from.
No, I actually don't. In the run up to the release, Nika, I don't think that was many of the selling points.
I think it's been the MSQ that people are most hyped for.
Yeah. See, I actually have a really weird perspective on this, because like everywhere I look, I feel like people are saying positive things about Stormblood and about the MSQ, but regardless of all that, it's like there's still this
it's a waiting period.
The right word for it, but there's just
malaise.
This weird sort of kind of so it's like what people are saying doesn't jive with what I'm seeing.
There's a slight melancholy in the community. No, I understand. Like, it seemed like in Heaven's Word, right? Like, everyone was really motivated to get to 60 very quickly. And I don't feel like on a personal level, I don't feel that same level of motivation. I'm still hanging out at 62.
It's because we're all really hesitant about what content's going to come out next. And also, there's not a lot of content right now.
You think?
Or reason to be 60 or 70.
I mean, maybe, but I
like because the normal raids, the normal mode Omega comes out on Tuesday, and I think all of us think it's going to be exactly like normal mode Alexander when it first came out, and I feel like it's probably true. And since we're also hesitant about that we're just not as excited.
I think she's completely correct. When Heaven's War came out, I thought there was I felt this humongous race in the community to get there really fast because I wanted to be able to do Alexander as soon as it dropped. And I'm sitting there thinking now, like, I hated Alexander.
Yeah.
And if that's what I have to look forward to when I get there.
You have a nice raid group now, Escalia.
Well, but hold on, Nika. Actually, I think Escalia narrowed in on something really, really good there, because prior to Final Fantasy XIV, like, Alexander has a lot of like legacy to it. Like, Alexander and Bahamut in like the FF universe are kind of both really, really big deals. And Bahamut was obviously treated very, very well in A Realm Reborn, but Alexander fell flat in like almost every aspect.
I think that sentiment coming out of Heaven's Word and Alexander for rating has a lot to do with it. I think you're right. Because, I mean, you know, Juxta, you were saying that before this show, you were listening to our Heaven's Word show. And you were saying on that episode that you had gone from 50 to 57.
Yeah, in like 21 hours.
That's
and the first first day, like I did a 21-hour stream or continuous playthrough or whatever, and I was like at like 57 or something ridiculous.
Now the thing is that like I sort of feel like some of it has to do with like the narrative feels a little bit longer. It feels a little bit more well paced.
In Stormblood?
Yeah,
absolutely. The narrative is much better paced.
And see, that's one of the things that I find
there's a few
weird is because I'm with a Nero here that I don't feel any need or urge to get through the MSQ.
Yeah.
But everything that I've been seeing about it or hearing about it, I like. So why aren't I?
Well, it's just like what Nika was saying earlier. What is there to do when you get there? And
when you
Kyle
get there,
pointed out in the
you're
chat.
just leveling another job. Is
Right.
what you're doing.
Kyle pointed out in the chat. Take your time, because when you get there, here's what you got. And oh, by the way, especially if you're a DPS, grinding your tomes is going to suck because your queue times are going to be atrocious.
Excuse me, I am a host on Limit Break Radio. I have minions.
That is ridiculous. I've never heard of such a crazy queue time for PvP.
Oh my god. That's
What are tomes in PvP like? Not bad.
You get like there's like a sub 5-minute queue time, and you get like 30 or 40.
Oh, I'm just doing that.
Yeah,
well, and it's also in terms of XP. Once you get like, I wouldn't do it from 50 to 60, but 60 plus, the amount of XP you get is insane.
Oh yeah, I've been using PvP almost exclusively for leveling to get between 60 and 70. Like hell no, I'm not doing anything else. But when you get to 70, yeah, you've got a couple dungeons you can do for tomes, and right now, it's kind of it. There's some super fates you can go around and do. You can get some maps.
But the thing is you can't even do those fucking super fates because the instances get congested and it won't let you in.
That too.
I was trying to do Ixion yesterday, and I kept trying to enter, and it's like, this instance is congested. Please try again later.
You know, the one thing that as I've been leveling that I was like, oh man, I wish that I was like 60 really quick so that I could start doing these, was actually hunts, because that's how you get the tier 6 materia. But are people even doing hunts?
Oh yeah, tons of people.
Yeah.
Okay, they are now, because again, yeah, in like the early days, no, like, and I realize people were probably still leveling and doing MS.
Yeah, nobody could do really hunts until you were at 70. Like I every time I saw a hunt, I would shout it out for people and then go on my way because I wasn't high enough to get anything from it.
Yeah, the first couple days of hunts definitely wasn't getting done, but now I see groups doing
hunts
them.
are big right now, but
but again, hunts are big right now because what's your alternative? Sitting in a queue time.
Yeah, that's what you're getting otherwise. Also, you can get tier 6 materia as random enemy drops. I don't know if you guys
wait, what?
Oh yeah, I've gotten I have 3 tier 6 materias, and they're all just from dungeon drops.
Really?
Oh, okay. In dungeons, I thought you meant just out killing stuff.
No. In dungeons, like random enemies will drop tier 5 and tier 6 materia just to your inventory.
Interesting.
Kind of like how you'd randomly get it in like Aquapolis, but now you just get
Aquapolis.
Like seriously, like it's weird. All of a sudden, it's like so and so obtains a quick arms.
Yeah. All right. I have a question for the chat really quick now, and I hope whoever decides to answer it will call in to do so, because a lot of people that have just like sitting here rattling off all this stuff that you can do, right? And here's the problem I have: all this stuff that you're rattling off for us to do 2 weeks into a new expansion is the same stuff you've been telling us to do since A Realm Reborn. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah.
I've been watching the chat. I don't feel like tons of people have been. I feel like a lot of people are agreeing with us right now.
Level PvP. dungeons, grind for tone.
It is all the same. That's why I think that the grind for 70 is just not as much of a rush because we're just not sure what
We know
content
what's
we're
at the
getting
end
in
of
this
the
week.
race.
We know exactly what we're going to get. So here's my question then, because prior to Stormblood launching, a lot of the things that we were saying was this is their last chance, right? There's no way that people are going to be able to sit through, a 5.0 if this is a lot of the same stuff, right? Which it looks like it is. And it looks like some people are having trouble even getting into Stormblood, and they like the story. Like, does that not
The story is more, I would say 85% of the story is fantastic.
And here's the thing, like, Stormblood, when I look at it, like, objectively, I think they've done so many good things with it. I think the zone design in
zone design is
Stormblood
so much better.
is the best zone design I've seen since 11's era.
I agree.
Like, and I mean, like, no, like, think about, like, Kugane, right? I know, obviously super weird, but you could strip the Japanese skin off of it and put something else there.
I just
the
feel like
actual
it's a
design.
giant labyrinth.
I love
hard,
that, though.
It's so hard to navigate. I hate it.
But it
Oh my
feels-
God, I
but
love
it feels
it.
like a real town.
Yeah,
Like you walk down the streets, like Fusion was saying about when he got to experience it at the media tour. Like it feels like a town where people live and businesses are operating. Like it,
more than that, Nika, because I agree with that too. And gosh, you're right. Fusion was actually spot on with this. That's one of the things that I praised on stream over and over and over again was that Kugane didn't feel like a city. Kugane felt like a zone.
Yeah.
Like it was just as alive and complex as any zone that have been added to the game in any of the expansions.
And as far as it being a city, it doesn't feel to me like it was plopped down all at once in Sim City. Like they had it on pause mode, they plopped down the entire city, then hit the play button to go. It felt like it might have started as something smaller and was built over time. It feels real.
Yeah. And that's nice. Like, you're right. Like, if you start with the Aetheryte Plaza as, like, the first sort of, like, hub
where it
of
began.
where, yeah, it's sort of, you're right. It has this sort of sprawling feel to
Where
it.
you could see, like, at some point, they're like, hey, we need a barracks. Let's throw it down over
where
here.
everything's just like a big circle. It does feel like you just kind of plopped it down.
Yeah, so it seems like Ul'dah was built before anyone lived there, and then one day they said, and you can move in today.
Yeah.
Like
Kugane feels like the people built it up.
Exactly.
Although that actually lends itself well to the theme of calamity and rebuilding.
Yes.
You know, like when your civilization has had to, through circumstance, rebuild itself upwards of 7 times.
Yeah.
Then you get pretty good at designing living spaces.
But like the city that emphasizes that for me is Limsa Lominsa, where half of it feels like it's just like built into whatever happened to be there at the time. Limsa Lominsa emphasizes that idea.
Yeah, I think that you're right, and the fact that they use decks and stuff like that to kind of use as the main moving space between these kind of natural. I think they're salt pillars or something, whatever those rocks are that the city's built into. I think that that's a very good point. But Kugane does seem a little bit more organic in the way that it has sprawled out, and to me it seems to be implying that it has that area of the world has not experienced the same cycles of destruction. Yeah,
Kugane definitely feels like it may have been untouched now for some centuries, like for a long time.
Untouched in terms of the calamity, right? Yeah, where you've had kind of unfettered growth of humans or humanoids or whatever the race is.
Right. Everything
of
in
Eorzea. Yeah.
Everything in the other cities tends to look very new, like it was built in the last 50 years because it probably was. Kugane looks like it has things that were probably there for a long, long time.
Right.
And it's not just Kugane. Like the Ozium Steppes is maybe my favorite zone since the Sanctuary of Zeta. I think the Ozium Steppes are gorgeous.
Cool zone. And it, even though it's like really mostly flat, there's some mountains on the outskirts, but like it's beautiful.
They managed to make a flat area interesting, which is beyond impressive to me.
You know, I think one of the things and I don't know why I'm just thinking about this now, but from all of the cutscenes with Bahamut in it destroying all of the different cities that we've come from, don't you think that like with all of the destruction and the ethereal disturbances that we saw throughout the world, like how is it that the cities remain largely untouched from all of that?
Yeah, like what what was actually destroyed in Gridania? I mean, you have old Gridania, but like nothing was really destroyed.
But even in those cutscenes, it looked like something was destroyed. And I guess the implication or what they're trying to imply is that it was either rebuilt exactly the same or that damage didn't happen. I don't know. Really,
that's something we talked about.
I mean, I think that's just something that they overlook for purposes of play easy, like the ease of play.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. But I agree with your point, though. Like, a lot of the cities, they definitely... You can't... If it wasn't part of the lore, you'd have no idea that something ever happened.
Right. Yeah. Like, I feel like...
in the towns itself, but there are some areas in, like, Mordona and other
right.
land where you could see things that have been
like is it the Western or Eastern Shroud? Eastern Shroud, right? Is gone.
Yeah,
East. It's just gone. But how would you know that if
it's
West Shroud? Whatever. West Shroud.
Yeah.
So it's just gone. But how would you really know that if they didn't tell you?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you can see it. There's a couple of places that you can see it from.
Okay. Is there?
Yeah. You see this big kind of like weird ethereal disturbance.
Okay.
You know, like where the big hole is that you go down and it's got golems in the bottom. Yeah. At the top of that,
you can see over to
you
west.
can see into what would have been West Shroud, and it's just this like big, huge ethereal disturbance from, I would assume, a big chunk of Dalamud falling.
Oh, that's super cool. See, like stuff like that.
But like, I always wanted that to be a dungeon, right? Like, I always wanted to.
Oh, that would have been
the remains of the West Shroud.
Yeah.
See, now that's that's actually a good way too, because I agree with Ascalia's point too. Because even if I were to go there now, let's say as a new player, and see that, you don't necessarily know, oh, that's the shroud that was destroyed. You would still need someone to tell you that. But Aniro, you're right. If they turn that into a dungeon, oh man, that would be such a great way to explore areas like that.
Yeah,
Holy
there's definitely a couple of sections of the map that, when they were removed to be able to truncate the map for A Realm Reborn, that what they ended up doing with them was interesting and could have been revisited. I've always thought that West Shroud would be an amazing dungeon or instance or something. But yeah, I mean, I can't really speak to all of the zone designs because obviously I'm just getting into Kugane. But I do think that, yeah, you're right. The way that these zones have been designed, at least the ones that I've experienced, have had a huge attention to detail.
Well, especially in Kugane, and you're going to see it again when you get to Yangsha. The use of the vertical, of the Z-axis, it's so good. Especially like Yangsha is another one of these zones that I just thought was outstanding, because you can make your zone feel so much more like real when you have these different vertical heights that you go up, down. I just have to go over there, but it's way up.
I want to, because obviously we haven't gotten there yet. Now, first of all, Yangsha is the final zone, right? That's the Azaz.
No, that is. No, Yangsha is right after the Ruby Sea.
Nothing feels like Azaz slot to me. The final zone is the locks, but
okay. Well, that was actually one of the things that I was going to ask, because I feel like all the final zones in each expansion I've never been a really big fan of. But okay, so Yangsha compared to Sea of Clouds, because I'd say that Sea of Clouds makes you use your X-axis quite a bit.
Sea of Clouds.
I didn't like the Sea of Clouds.
There's so many levels in Sea of Clouds. Like, I think that was where they really wanted to show off. Like, look, we can fly and make 5 different levels of the same exact spot on the map.
That's exactly what it is, because in Sea of Clouds, while there were different levels, so much of it was built around the flying mechanic, and once you have the flying mechanic, there really isn't different levels anymore. It's all just one plane again.
Yeah.
Whereas in Yangsha, much of the different levels are built in. You can still walk to pretty much anywhere. You can still walk up the hill.
If we want to talk about diving in that aspect, however,
diving
is very cool. The first time you're exploring a certain area, you have to do whatever quest requires you to dive, but then
it's boring fast.
It's not even that it gets boring to do it. I like swimming. It's just that there's a lot of nothing.
There's no point to
They don't utilize it.
Yeah.
Well, when they immediately when they said that there's not going to be any combat during swimming, I went, well,
it's flying underwater.
Yeah, then there's no purpose.
Except you can fly to places to see cool historical parts of Author. Swimming, like, okay, I found a few headless statues that have
okay, I see what you
like.
Even when you're flying around.
Even when you're flying around, you can see cool stuff. Underwater, like, I feel like it's a lot of repeated. Like, I've seen multiples of like the same headless statue.
The first time that I got to fly in the Dravanian Forelands, it felt like a different zone to me, because first of all, there was a few other areas that you could access, but just being able to see everything from up in that perspective, I don't know, it was just like, it was altering for me, right?
There are a lot
even though swimming is just flying underwater, you're not really seeing anything. Like, she's right, they could have put so much like history down there.
There are a few areas that look really cool. I do think some of the textures are kind of repeated, but in general, like, there are some areas where you can fly that you can't, like, you unlock flying before you get to every area in most of them. Well, yes, I understand that there's like sunken things, but the thing is like they don't utilize it. Like, the swimming makes the zone feel double as large, but there's no real reason to just want to go around. Like I like to just fly around and just see the stuff I haven't been to. Like, oh hey, there's like a statue on top of a cliff up here. How cool is that? Like, I have no motivation to just dive and explore what's down there. Well, and no drive for me to want to do that.
My big issue with diving is the color palette, because when you use an underwater scene, you're limited to dark blues and dark greens, which are not particularly interesting to look at. Unlike flying, where it doesn't, like, you can use the whole color palette, whatever you want, so whatever zone you happen to be into. But when you're diving, because you're in that dimly lit, dark underwater world, it's like there's only so much you can do to make it interesting.
It feels tedious. Like, it really does. Yeah. Like, it feels tedious. There's really no point. You're you're covering empty space between where you are and where you need to be. And again, I think, like, as I'm traversing these maps on foot or on Chocobo back, you know what I mean? Like, that is really interesting to me, because you're also having to problem solve, right? Like, you're having to avoid aggro. You're having to figure out, oh, well, what's this pathing on this map? Like, there's almost none of that when you dive. Like, it's just like...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were just using it as flying before you got flying.
Exactly.
Like, I need to go from here to there. I'm going to go underwater because you can get on your mount underwater.
Yep.
So you just go faster and then get up wherever you need to go.
That's exactly it. Before you have flying in the zone, it's way better to dive because you can move so fast.
I'm not even saying that diving isn't cool. I think it's cool, and they just underutilized it.
Yeah, there needs to be more to it. Like, the one thing I can remember is going to the hidden dungeon under the water, and you're like, all right, this is neat that I can go find this and do this, but...
And like, there's a couple
like, you could have done it without diving.
Dive down there and get this like seagrass and come back, but like, it's not what I like. The zone design itself is fantastic, but they didn't utilize any of the space underwater as well as they hyped it to.
Yeah. I did a quest where you basically took this guy's manta for a swim, and they had you like swim around the zone, and I was bored the entire time.
Oh my god, I'm so mad about that, because I thought that quest chain was going to give us the manta as a mount. So I did all 5 quests. I'm like, at the end of this quest chain, it's going to give us the mount, and I got through like all 5 quests, and you don't even get it. Like,
nah.
Why would you ever think that's not a Beastman tribe reward?
Oh, I don't know. It probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but still, I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm so excited to get this manta out." Yeah.
But yeah, like people kept comparing the Ruby Sea to like their Mog Home experience. Their Sea of Clouds, or not Sea of Clouds.
There is a lot of quests that pop up.
Yeah,
oh my God.
I guess, but I never got the same feeling that I got from like the Moogle quests when I was in Sea of Clouds.
I'll tell you why. Because these side quests, I will say, I've said this a couple of times on the streams I've done, that the side quests do a pretty good job of giving you world building story. The side quests are not They do. They really do. Because like, I mean, the Moogle quests were so tedious. They're literally like, a baby Moogle's been lost. Go find him.
Yeah.
But like, almost, I want to say 90% of side quests have stories. Like, the characters are like, oh, so-and-so, my son was in the war and I've never found him. And then ends up being like a 5 quest chain about his whole life story. I'm like, this is awesome. But like, almost every quest is like that, or like there's this gang of pirates and someone betrays someone and you're like, oh fuck. Like, seriously, every single side quest has like a real world building story, and I think in that, kudos.
Here's your other option: do 10 front lines, and then you can just skip all the side quests and only do the MSQ.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I did. I'm saving a lot of side quests for Samurai because DPS queues are way worse and tank queues were not. So, but I did
not in PvP.
I did manage to do a lot of like a few random side quests around, and just in general, I thought it was.
See, maybe I've just been getting unlucky because I've read a few quests like here and there, some of the side quests, but I feel like whenever I decide, all right, let me actually read this one, it's always just like, hey, did that girl get attacked by jellyfish? Go see if she's okay. Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah.
The end.
Quick, look.
But then it continue that story. A lot of times, then there'll be another quest with that person afterwards, and you find out, oh, the reason I was checking up on that person is because her mother died, and I was tasked to watch over her. Like shit like that. Like, there's more to every single one of these stories.
Quick, shoot this sheep with a blow dart. What? Why?
That's MSQ.
That quest was awesome.
Scalia's like, did you say blow the sheep? Because I can do that.
I'm ready.
That quest was fun though.
Yeah.
Don't touch his dick.
Seems like you're on your way to animal fondling.
Oh, good.
Well, I know that Juxta was really excited to be picking up animal shit in one quest.
You get to hit Imperials with blow darts too.
That's true. You do get to shoot Imperials, which I still feel bad about. I don't think they deserve that.
All right, let's go back to our phone lines. We've got Piggy McSquee of Sergeant Tanis hanging on the line.
Speaking of animal
calling in on Discord. What's up, Piggy?
Nothing much, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Thanks for calling in.
I wanted to backcheck to the hunt.
Okay.
And let me tell you, instead of doing the level 70 dungeon / trials, I've been just doing the hunt. I feel like I can get more variety out of the hunts faster than one dungeon.
I think that's especially because there are 3 instances in every zone, so the hunts are popping double time or triple time.
Yeah.
And just the fact of getting grade 6 materia just outclasses the fact I can just get the 310 armor through the variety I'm getting.
Is it just me, or does Piggy have a way more normal voice than you were anticipating?
Yeah, I mean we took a call from him last week. So
fair enough.
Yeah, good job showing
If you're
up.
paying attention.
Anyway, so yeah, no, I mean,
are you excited to be doing hunts again though?
No, that's the thing. Is that like this is the same?
Well, you are. Why?
I just like hunting. Like, it lets me see more of, like, I mean, even knowing like they all have set spawns, I get to enjoy the zones a little bit more. It gives me
I mean, I like seeing the new hunts the first time I see one. Like, oh wow, this hunt's so cool and big, and then the next time I see him, I'm totally.
I'm a little bit with Piggy here because there is a certain sense to hunts that you do have to come together with a group of people, and at least when you're finding hunts until guild work is up and running, there's a sense of like working together. I once said that the reason that I don't like dungeons is because every time you go into a dungeon, it's the same run every single time. Right? You don't have to communicate with anybody on any level, but at least when you're doing hunts, they pop in different places. You're trying to track them down. And obviously earlier in the expansion, when everyone's doing them, they just die super quick. But as that starts to die down, you sometimes even have to start utilizing actual tactics in order to take down certain hunts. So, I mean, I get it, but it is still something we've done before.
I mean, like,
plus there's a new mount.
Well, I mean,
wait, what?
Yeah, there's new mount, but like,
yeah,
is it good?
Piggy, because I didn't recognize your name, and maybe you changed from an old name. But like, how long have you been playing? Out of curiosity.
I've been playing a little bit over a year, but I've server hopped a few times. I think this is my 4th server. I've been on.
So you haven't been doing you weren't doing hunts at the beginning of Heaven's Ward either.
No.
Okay, so you came in with then maybe then I can understand why you might be excited to do hunts, but like, I've been doing hunts now since 2.0, and I'm tired of hunts.
Yeah.
Well, 2.1.
Well, hunts didn't come out.
2.1, whenever they came out.
Yeah, like that's the thing for the people who've been doing them concurrently. As they kind of get expanded over time, this shit is like, we're on the 3rd iteration of this.
Yeah,
who fucking who?
I'd like to see what the hunt looks like the first time. Like, whenever I hear a new hunt name called, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want to go see what he looks like. And then after that, I give no shit.
And then you're done. Like, once I know what they all are,
But it's like if someone tells me, give it to Square Enix for finally putting something in the hunts that will hopefully keep them relevant a little bit longer,
which is
tier 6 materia. Yeah.
How much are those going for on servers?
Tier 6?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I haven't
How
even
do you not know, Nick?
I've
You
not
have
dared
like
to
4.
check.
Have you not
Because
sold them?
I'm keeping them because I'm going to use them.
Oh my
my
god,
God.
that's so dumb economically.
All right, chat, rattle off for us what
Okay,
are tier
don't
6
tell me it's so
going for on your
dumb.
server?
I need to be ready for rating this day it comes out. I'm not going to sell my materia right now.
Sell it right now because it's worth the most literally right now.
It's actually not, because everybody's getting them. Like, especially the tier 5s, which are going to go back up because you can't overmeld tier 6s, I don't believe. So right now, tier 5s are worth like 3K, but I guarantee you, give it a month or two, tier 5s are going to be worth a lot more.
Yeah, actually, it looks like on most people's servers, they're going for about what tier 5s were going for as well.
Okay,
once less people are like spamming dungeons and spamming hunts, and once there's less hunts to go around because the instances will go away, the price will go up because the demand will go up and there'll be less.
Yeah, but as servers naturally empty out as the expansion goes on, I just feel like the bottom falls out of so many markets because you have regular and predictable outputs for all of these things that you're talking about.
The more time that passes, the more supply that's going to be pumped into the system.
Exactly. Yes.
But it's not going to with these. There's going to be less people doing hunts. There's going to be less hunts in general.
But they will probably end up putting in. They'll put in more ways to get the tier 6s. Like, for example, when Ivalice comes out, right? You'll probably get something at the end of an Ivalice raid you can go turn in for tier 6 material.
I mean, maybe.
I mean, definitely, but no. Right at the start of a raid coming out, that is the time that's going to be worth the most.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the raiders have all of their materia, the demand's going to bottom out, and supply's just going to keep pumping in.
And it'll also depend too on how well the raid's received. If you have a really strong reception to your raid, you'll see that market stay strong for a while. But if people don't like it,
if it's Gordius,
man. If it's Gordius, it's going to plummet.
You're going to hit the bottom real quick. Anyway, Piggy, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. One other thing that I wanted to mention, it's weird because, we're into the third iteration of things like hunts and fates and dungeons.
Ugh.
And it feels like that's really kind of like, in terms of content injections, that's all really we've gotten. We've gotten updates on things that we've had for a long time.
Right.
Now, when you compare it against FF11, and again, some of it is probably rose-colored glasses. I'm totally willing to admit that. But it seems like, if you transpose hunts for NMs, right, notorious monsters,
sure,
that in the same way, Final Fantasy XI kind of did that, where it's like you had a new type of notorious monster that would be introduced, but the difference would be the way that you end up spawning it or the pop it, the spawn items or whatever you had to invest.
How impossible it was to kill.
Yeah.
Well, BCNMs to KSNMs to ENMs.
Right.
What else?
Dick NMs.
But so my question is, and because anyone who played that game knows that that's kind of intrinsically true. But my question is why did that feel kind of fundamentally more satisfying, where we just got different conditions under which mobs would pop in, and then it would be kind of similar fights almost every single time. Like, there were some dynamics that you had to respond to. There was some different mechanics, but that was like different mechanics would come out like once every 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a very responsive game.
Yeah.
So why were those systems received so much more, like positively than even Heavensward? Like Heavensward, we started to recognize like, oh, this is just the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, moving on to Stormblood, we're kind of identifying that same pattern. And I'm just saying, like, it's not satisfying to me. I think that's what I'm hearing from you guys as well. Why is that?
Because difficulty. That's what it comes down to. Difficulty.
I don't know
How
about
many
that.
hunts do you kill in a single night, right? Like, rack them up. For some people, it's probably close to 100. You could do 100 hunts in a single night if you put the effort into it. How many NMs could you do in a single night in Final Fantasy XI? Nowhere near as many.
Like 3, maybe?
Yes, it's the difficulty of it. That's
but that's not. Hang on, that's not difficulty.
FF11 was not difficulty though.
Yeah,
that was scarcity and in availability. Yeah, of like you just wanted to create competition between different link shells and just piss you off.
There was competition. You're right.
I mean, the competition was part of it, I think, but it wasn't difficulty. However,
well, here's the other thing too: is along with ENMs came Limbus and C. ENMs were your baseline, maybe to make some money or to get some extra gear, but like it was all based around gearing up for Limbus and C.
But if you remember in FF11, before we had that, of course, we had Sky, and then the end-all be-all was Ground Kings, right? Like, during Rise of Zillar, you had Sky that, a higher percentage of your endgame community was doing, and then you had the super tight-focused Ground Kings.
And Dynamis.
And,
forget Dynamis.
Dynamis,
it's casual endgame.
It was a different... No. Like, Dynamis at that time definitely was endgame, but it was a different thing because you needed so many more resources to be able to participate in that.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like, you could have... And again, the requirements were different, but you could have, like your middle tier players starting with Dynamis, then moving on to Sky, and then finally graduating.
Even that's what I did.
Yeah, everyone hit level 65 and said, like, wait, I can do something that isn't partying. Get me in that Dynamis run.
Right.
So,
no, that's true.
More
That's
of
true.
A variety then?
Yes, that's always what we've been saying. This game needs more variety. 11 didn't have the best content, but it had a variety of content. So you could have a Dynamis link shell, an Einherjar link shell, a Savage link shell, and just if those are the only 3 that you liked and ignore everything else. Or you can have a Ground King Sky, whatever, and just do the content that you liked. And now, at first, we were giving 14 the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, it's only its first expansion. Like, 11 didn't get all this variety until so many expansions. But now we're into it's like essentially 14's third expansion.
Yeah.
I'm still having fun with the content that's in the game, but the thing is, you get burnt out and bored simply because there's not variety.
But Nika, are you having fun with the content, or are you having fun with your friends?
Okay, it's both. Like, the content that's in the game, the end game rating that's in the game is not bad content. It's fun. Like, especially creator people said was fun. But when it is the only content, when it is the only end game, you get burnt out and bored really fast. Not that the content itself is bad or shouldn't exist. It just needs a variety.
But I mean, like,
if we had this current content plus something else we could do, like 2 other types of endgame content, I think nobody would be bitching about it.
But what is Diadem and Palace of the Dead if not an attempt at that?
Palace of the Dead is not endgame.
I'm not saying. Oh, okay, that's fair. Not necessarily.
Diadem was. I it was an attempt. Trying.
It was an attempt. Yeah, no, it was an attempt.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, and it didn't go well, and that's fine. And it's fine that it didn't. But the thing,
they need to like not let that be like, oh, we tried, we failed, fuck it, we're just gonna do more of the same. No, keep trying. Keep trying.
My question is, and Farian, I see your call here. We'll get to you in a minute, but again, I want to make sure that I'm projecting this properly.
Sure.
Okay, because the question that I'm asking is not. Like I'm not suggesting in any way that NMs need to be brought into FF14.
I'm just a 1-to-1 ratio.
Exactly. I'm just drawing a comparison to, okay, well, we've gotten another tier of hunts. Is it because there's no new popping mechanics, that there's no new, like, there's nothing new that's coming along with hunts? It's literally just an identical copy and paste iteration of the A Realm Reborn hunts and the Heavensward hunts, just with a different character model associated with it.
Here's my problem with hunts as opposed to NMs. And I'm not going to say there were, of course, Rock and Simurg and things like that where you actually had to have some people who knew what they were doing. But if you did like a BCNM, right? You had 3 people maybe who go in or 6 people go in. You had to look up a strategy. You had to learn how the fight worked and go in and do it. And of course, there were some broken strats that might be able to do it easier than others. But with this, every hunt, if I have a group of 18 or whatever, is go grab the hunt, go to where the hunt is, and watch the mob melt as I just mash my hand against the keyboard. And that gets really repetitive.
Yes, okay, and I understand that, but I'm saying that NMs in FF11 could be as repetitive and as mechanical, but there was something about the way that each of the different expansions, it presented the way to do NMs, right? Like that. Yep. There was something unique about every time they went back to this NM system, which that NMs made up the core of Final Fantasy XI's endgame. And the thing is that I feel like, and not just us, but the community at large had so much less criticism for this, the NMs that would just keep coming back again and again and again, and but we have all this criticism for things like hunts.
Right.
I'm just saying that that they're remarkably similar things, but just presented slightly differently. And I'm wondering, like, if they had done something different with hunts, like anything different, where the participation process was slightly tweaked, or like I don't know what they could have done with it, but had they changed it in the same way that in 11, like they made a change to distinguish ZNMs from other poppable NMs that we had at the time. You know what I mean?
Well, like, take a look at Simurg, okay? Like, Simurg was a long spawn window. Only one group could get him, but if you happened to get him and you happened to get the item that dropped off him, you were rich. And that was I was willing to put the time and effort into trying to get that. Whereas with hunts, it's a very simple process. I can do it like it's like an assembly line. It's just like go to this station, do this, go to this station, do this.
Scott, I think the point you're trying to get to is what it comes down to, and you know, we've talked about this in so many different ways for so many different things, is the reward structure.
Yeah.
Because just like how we're doing the same thing every single expansion with hunts, we're also doing it for the same reason, which is these little bloody log things that allow us to upgrade tome gear that we're grinding for.
And knowing exactly how many of them you're going to get, and exactly like if I can sit there and say, here's the problem, is I can figure out, okay, it takes me exactly this long to go do this hunt, and I know I'm going to get this for doing it. If I can sit there and calculate out exactly how long I have to sit there pressing my button, if I could effectively macro it and let a machine play it for me, I don't want to do it. And that's what hunts feel like a lot of the time. There's like it's just gonna be me going back to the board.
I need 10 more rank A's, and then I'll be able to get the rest of my stuff.
Exactly. I need exactly 10 more rank A's, and each rank A takes me about 4 minutes to go do with a group.
And maybe if a log drops, I only need 8 more kills.
Yeah. So it's just like back in the day, like, you know what? More of the time than not, like I farmed Jagged Ear Jack and Leaping Lizzie and all those stupid ones, had a stupid low drop rate, and you know what? More often than not, I spent 4 hours to get absolutely nothing. But the one time I got those leaping boots, oh man.
But I mean, like, and that's the thing, is that there was an investment, there was frustration, and no one's gonna deny that. It's not. We're not saying that it was a perfect system or that it would be applicable here. I'm just saying, like, the presentation of it was different, and I feel like the reception of those systems was different as well, and I'm wondering why. And again, I think that you can draw an analog between content like NMs and content like hunts, but the fact that it's hunts and it hasn't changed from A Realm Reborn, that is probably the biggest detriment to what we're talking about.
Here's a thought process. If Final Fantasy XI's expansions all had a Dynamis zone as their end game,
like that was it?
Yeah, like Limbus was actually just Dynamis. Salvage was just a Dynamis zone. Every single end game was a Dynamis zone.
And they acknowledged that it was Dynamis. Like
it's Dynamis.
Literally Dynamis Ottergon.
Hey, welcome to Ottergon. We're going to be expanding Dynamis into Ottergon.
Right. Which, I mean, to be fair, they did do once. You did get the COP Dynamis zones, the Dreamland Dynamis zones.
Yeah, you're right.
But in the Dreamland Dynamis zones, there was all new mechanics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just
locked sub job. Oh, fuck Dreamland Dynamis.
Like, I just wonder if you know, like, there's just slight variations that you can do on some of this stuff, because, like, I get it. Like, developing an entirely new system is a lot of time and effort.
Yes.
And you do want to be able to work your development staff into a pattern, because then, you know, you work teams work best when they're worked into patterns, because
so that way you can produce more content.
The workflow is pretty well established, and you end up generally with pretty high quality stuff. Okay. And it's interesting in that Note Club documentary. Yoshi P talks a lot about his management style.
Yeah,
which is really interesting for me. That was really interesting to learn about. But I just, again, you know what, Kahlo, I think that you bring up a good point. The reward structure has a lot to do with it.
Always comes back to that.
I think that definitely has a lot to do with it. But I think it's got to be presentation. You know, like,
that would obviously help as well.
If you give us hunts, but stop like. It's not just not calling them hunts, but you've got to be able to
implement
take
them a little differently, and we'd be fine. Like, just a little bit different.
Take a look at, like, what's coming up. Like, yes, we have Evilise and Omega coming up, but what is that when you strip that away? It's the new 8-man and the new 24-man.
Right.
And we've had an 8-man and a 24-man in every one of these, and it's like, if I can break them down into those little categories like that, that's where it feels like it's the same thing with the new skin on it.
Even if they just change the amount of people and make it, like, not so much like boss, trash boss, like, just change it a little bit.
Nate, you just gave me, you reminded me of something. When I first got to Kugane, and you get the quest when they first start, like, sort of directing you towards the new hunt board, right? They started talking about my rank, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't have a rank. They're like, you've killed so many, why don't you have a rank? And I'm like, are they actually introducing some type of, like, rank up system? Because even if there was some type of just weird, and obviously in the end it wouldn't matter anything, some type of, like, progression, like you have to kill so many, you know, B ranks before you get access to or the more you kill and the higher rank you get, the more seals you get from kills. Even something like that, I think, would have given it just a new feel.
Yeah,
a new take on it.
And I mean, functionally, you can have hunts presented almost exactly the same with a little twist, and I think that goes down a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Like, from a design standpoint, but like if you could limit the number of people who can attack them. Like if you,
that's a big design change.
It's a big design change, but like that would change hunts on a fundamental level.
Yeah,
and maybe that would be a little bit more interesting. Now the problem you're going to run into is eventually people aren't going to be doing hunts, and then you're going to be screwed.
That is, and I think that's really the problem. And again, it stands in stark contrast to Final Fantasy XI, where you talk about things like Dynamis. Did Dynamis ever stop happening?
No. Dynamis still goes on today.
Well, because you still needed the currency for Relic.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can solo Dynamis today, but you still do
or
it.
There's certain gear that was just synonymous. Like if you were a thief, you had to have Assassin's Armlets, period.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to play Dragoon, you had to have the headpiece.
So
if you wanted to be a Red Mage, you had to have Red Mage AF2.
So I think the one question mark that exists here in Stormblood that we don't know exactly how that's going to end up shaking out is Eureka.
Yeah.
That's really it.
I don't like having to put so much of my hope on something.
I don't want to put all my stock on Eureka, though.
Yeah.
Everyone just talk at once.
Stock on.
Everyone just talk at once.
Sorry,
because that's a really good way to do a radio show.
But to be fair, we're all saying the same exact thing. We are like, that's where it's going to be, and if it fails, like, what do we have to look forward to?
And no one has confidence in it.
Well, I think that's a real problem. That the community doesn't really have confidence in the ability for the proposed endgame, and the thing that changes in this iteration to be better. Because again, Palace of the Dead, I know I bag on it a little bit, or people think that I really don't like Palace of the Dead. It was fine. It was serviceable.
Yeah.
It wasn't what it could have been.
No, it could have been better. But as an event goes, like, you look at that and you're like, if you're on thumbs up, thumbs down system, thumbs up.
Yeah.
You did well.
Sure.
If you look at Diadem, thumbs down.
That's objectively a thumbs down.
Aquapolis.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Thumbs up. It was okay. I mean, short, sweet, you get some shit out of it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Verminion, 2 thumbs down.
Yeah.
Double thumbs down.
I mean, you don't get much worse than Verminion.
No. I mean, at least they have that to look forward to. It's hard to do worse.
That is true.
They've hit the bottom of the barrel. They've had their...
Square Enix, hold my beer.
They've had their ballista. It's not getting worse.
That's their bottom of the barrel in terms of side quests and minigames. Like...
But I mean, like,
if they put in Blitzball, it would never be as bad as Verminion. However, that's also not endgame and what we're looking forward to.
True.
So.
But there is absolutely something to be said for monotony in an MMO. You have to break up your playstyle. You have to. I mean, at some point, Juxta, during World of Warcraft, when did you notice a big variation or a big shift that felt really satisfying?
What do you mean?
In any way, shape, or form. Like,
doesn't WoW change it up at every expansion?
Yeah, because I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, do you feel like in the time that you've played WoW that as it is updated that like you walk away with feeling more satisfied with what World of Warcraft Blizzard did with World of Warcraft than what Square Enix is doing with Final Fantasy XIV?
Yeah, because like Nika said, like basically every expansion they try to really shake up the game and like round off the edges. Like the talent system, the very first talent system they had was basically junk because everyone chose the same build every time.
Right.
So many expansions later, they took that shit out, put in a new talent system, which gave you meaningful choices. People complained because you had, quote, less choices, but in reality, you actually had more choices because each choice was mostly viable.
Right, you can still pick some garbage ones, but for the most part,
they're pretty evenly balanced.
Whereas before, it was one.
Right,
you
exactly.
The one choice in reality.
And the reason why that's really important is because Blizzard, like, noticed that change had to happen. Like, the whole talent system was flawed, and so they had to take steps to drastically alter the game to make it better overall. And in doing so, you had to weather the storm of people bitching and complaining that change is bad, we fear change.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember Wrath of the Lich King? They introduced the contested zone.
Oh yeah,
that was awesome. Wintergrass. That was awesome.
Yep.
And a big change in that expansion.
And I think that there was at least some of that expectation to be here. Like, you know, we're going into a conflict for, you know, with Alamigo. Like, it would have been a good opportunity to make something like a contested zone. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And so
it really would have been. And we had 2 continents to do it in.
Yeah.
We had Alamigo and we had Doma.
And yet it didn't happen. And the thing is that I can't figure out if it's just I think there's a little bit of fear. There's got to be a little bit of fear that's driving this. Like, you know, they were able.
Are they afraid of the game becoming 1.0 again?
I think so.
I feel like, especially with everybody's like, I mean, they claim they're listening to us. So I feel like with everyone saying like we're kind of getting bored.
I feel like during Heaven's Ward, right? Like, and especially after watching at least, because I haven't watched all of the no clip stuff, and I'm going to, but I feel like knowing what I know about some of the sentiments about 1.0, that some of the decision making is driven by, well, we don't want to backslide. If we try too many things and we try to break the mold too quickly, that we're going to end up backsliding into 1.0.
We're going to get that mess again. But you can't, on the other side of it, you can't stagnate. You have to be willing to take a risk.
Yes.
I mean, and we got that statement from Yoshi P back in the middle of Heaven's Ward that he was willing to start taking risks. And what happened? They released Diadem, it failed, and he's scared
It
now?
failed twice. It failed twice. And yeah, as a developer, I think when you get it wrong twice in a row, that can shake your confidence.
Sure, but
but they had a win with Palace of the Dead.
Well, and at the same time,
and let's look at the fucking Halloween event. They're talking about it in our chat now too. Like, that was what we wanted: different objectives, a map to explore. Like, fuck,
the Halloween event was great.
Everyone loved that. Like, I really hope, because they do say that they're going to change Palace of the Dead when we get, or change Deep Dungeon when we get the next one. So, I mean, they have potential there too to expand on that, and I hope to God that.
Well, and Skurrow's making a point right now. The first failure of Diadem really wasn't. I know, but he's not wrong in this. The first failure of Diadem wasn't as bad as the second one was.
Yeah.
And the second one was bad because it was reusing a system that people didn't want to see again.
Yeah.
We were so sick of Fates. And then we had to do it again.
You're right. Like, I think that people gave Diadem 1.0 more of a chance than they gave Diadem 2.0.
Yeah, I still have never done it.
People bailed out of Diadem
2.0.
like so fast. And the thing is like okay, if I'm Square Enix, like, what do I do to fix that? You know what I mean? Like,
you just scrap it and put in something new. Don't even try to revamp it. They're trying to revamp it. The 2.0, they should have totally scrapped it and put in something totally new.
I mean, yes, that's nice to stay in abstract, but like, what do you actually do? You know, like, in terms of mechanically,
literally keep the zone design. I guess that was fine.
Right.
But literally take everything that you have about Diadem and throw it out the window, and you do what World of Warcraft did with the talents, and you say, okay, this talent system, junk, throw it out. We're going to do something completely different that barely has any relevance to the old talent system.
But they did. The development team did exactly that with 1.0. They made that hard decision of, do we junk the entirety of 1.0 and start fresh with 2.0, and
it worked out.
And it did work out. You're absolutely right. That was they took a risk, and it ended up going well for them. And I say that to encourage Square Enix taking more risks. Now, again, Diadem was a risk. They acknowledged that it was a risk, and it didn't work out. Okay, that's fine. What'd you learn from it? That's, I think, the biggest question that I'd like to ask Yoshi P or any of the dev team. What did you learn from Diadem? What'd you learn?
And was what you learned, don't use Fates as the core of your system anymore?
Well, and how do you then try to find what is satisfying about your system and about your game? Because I think the problem is that following Alexander, there are far too many of these people that were going, Steps of Faith is too hard, Raids it's too hard. Like, and Square Enix like really took that at face value. And again, I think a lot of what they've said so far, that they're not going to consider complaints about difficulty. I think it's smart. Like, they need to do that. I think that, and again, this is for any creative person that's out there. your audience has the ability to work its way into your fucking head.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a comedian, if you're a performer, if you're a radio host, if you make a video game. That feedback mechanism has a way of getting in your fucking head and telling you shit it gives you false positives all the fucking time. That was one of the major psychological facts that I learned from doing the first iteration of Limit Break Radio, and why when we brought it back, we had this attitude of like it if you like it, fuck you if you don't. It's not an attempt, dude. It's not an attempt to like be a dick to people or to like exclude some people. It's to go, no, we're making the thing that we want to make. We're saying the things that we want to say. And if that's not okay with you, there's plenty of other people that will go say shit that you're not going to be offended by. But the point is to have this ability to have this dialogue and have this ability to say this not just publicly or on a microphone, but to each other. Like, I think that a lot of the opinions that we take are opinions that Final Fantasy XIV players will share amongst themselves in FC chats or link shell chats, or when they talk about it to each other, they talk about it in hushed tones. Like, this is like, oh man, I don't know about this system, but like, yeah, they're gonna get it together. They're gonna get it together. Like, yeah. There's this like defensive part of us that like doesn't allow us to go, man, this is shit and it's not really working for me.
It's because nobody wants to be a negative Nancy.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's just a lot of these people, they've just dropped $60 on an expansion and they pay for this game monthly, and you'd like to believe that eventually that investment's not going to be stupid.
I agree. That's probably part of it. But the thing is that, and again, to go back to that way that your audience can get in your fucking head. Like, if we sat around and listened to absolutely every last person that said, well, I like the old I like the old Limit Break Radio better, or like, I can't believe that you guys would say that kind of, like, if we took every piece of that seriously, we'd never be able to make a cogent product. Like,
we used to do that, like with the forum.
I know.
There was one member who like, and I don't know, like, we banned him and unbanned him 3 different times, and like looking back, it's like, why did we put up with that?
I don't know.
Because we were in college, we had so much time on our hands.
Well, not yeah, right, yeah, tons of time. But no, I think that happens with anyone who is not used to playing for an audience. Like, you get that's why, when we criticize other podcasts for placating Square Enix, we understand it because we did it for years. Like, it's a criticism, but like, it's one that we're coming at this from experience, right? Like, it's not just this like abject thing. Like, we get it, okay?
Yeah. And we get why it's appealing.
Exactly, because when you are given access, or you are given something from the company that you're trying to work with,
they recognize you and offer you an interview, it is validating.
It is hugely validating from a personal level, because you're like, oh my god, the people who made my favorite video game know who I am, and there is that for a little bit. But you know what? That goes away. Like, that wears off, and the novelty of having that validation also goes away too. And when it does, what are you left with? Are you left with a show that you can believe in and a product that you're proud of and that you stand by, or are you left with a whole bunch of opinions that aren't your own or have moved from how you really feel in order to not step on any toes and not hurt any feelings? I think that's the biggest thing, again, about this show. Since we brought it back, we're not afraid to hurt feelings. And guess what? If you have feelings that strong about a video game, like, maybe you should probably get those into fucking check. Like, maybe that actually says a lot more about your emotional maturity and ability to hear things that you don't agree with and process that in an adult way than it says about us and our ability to fucking be mindful of your feelings. I don't think we have to do that. I don't think media has to do that.
But to go back to your original point of, feedback has a way of getting into your head, even though we generally try to, ignore it a bit. We even have times where we have to call each other out and say, now, is that your opinion, or did you hear that from somewhere?
Yeah.
And because it does happen. Like,
it does.
It's nature. You can't ignore it. Like, if you go get off the air and people are tweeting at you all night saying, you suck or whatever it happens to be, eventually you're kind of like, did I fuck up today or something? What the hell?
Oh, man, I've never had that night.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what that feeling is like.
Do you know what that
Every
feeling
single
isn't
night.
like?
He never questions himself is the thing.
Well, because I'm always right. Because people think that I
Just
need
like
to
me.
that I need to be always right, and I don't. Like that. A lot of the times when I'm the most cynical, I want to be wrong. I want FF14 and Yoshi P to prove me wrong.
And let me tell you, when you actually like I don't want to say prove Nate or proving you're wrong, but like when you actually get him to realize the point of view that he had is maybe not right or take on a different point of view, like, oh, it's so gratifying to see that. Like he has this look that he does where he kind of like he's real disappointed with himself. And he's like, shit, they're right. Fuck.
Yeah, it's the same.
Nutter's gonna nut.
Yeah, it's that look basically. Where
I don't know what that look is. Anyway, let's go to our phone lines and talk to Fearon Terzo of Excalibur. What's going on, Fearon?
I guess that's close enough.
That's as close as we're gonna get.
Hey, that's the best that you're gonna fucking get.
Spell it out with pronunciation.
No, that's good. Whatever, don't worry about it.
I can. Do you want me to try it again? I can try it again for you if you want.
You don't want that.
Oh, you don't want
Sure,
this.
go ahead.
Okay, all right. Calling in now is Buttplug McStinkyface. Hey, what's up, Buttplug?
Hi, Escalia. How are you?
Rude.
Ooh, that was.
I tried to warn you.
That was a burn.
You can step on my face anytime you want.
Goodness gracious. Well,
wow. Okay, that escalated quickly.
Gonna get my Yotsuyo on.
Anyway,
what's up?
So we've moved on quite a bit from when I initially called in, but you guys were talking about hunts and NMs and how the difference between 11 and 14, and as someone who played 11 for 1,000 days worth of playtime, I think I'm inordinately qualified to talk about the differences between the two games and why it just doesn't work here.
There, by the way, just real quick, there is no other MMO where people will so quickly tell you what their playtime was.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that
Dude.
playtime in that game was such a badge of honor.
It really was.
I've burned 10% of my entire fucking life on that game.
Yeah.
I see, like when I broke 4 years playtime, I was like, that is like way too much of my life.
Okay, but you weren't playing during that whole time. You're just sitting AFK in Juno.
It's true.
with your flag.
Oh no.
There's some of that, yeah.
I literally spent most of that time actually playing the game.
But
those are 3 of my prime years of life in FF11. It's fucking miserable.
But like, if you think about it, though, there was just this like intrinsic difference to the way that content encouraged its players to keep participating. Like with FF11, it really conditioned habit. Like you had this like I almost felt compelled when I would get home to like I have to log on because I have to see what's going on. You know what I mean? Like there's.
What if there's a group? What if there's a group doing C and they're welcoming noobs in tonight? Oh my god, I have to get in on that.
I mean,
yeah,
it's a little sad when you say it like that, but
it's not horribly inaccurate. Do you know how often I was hoping like, oh my god, a Limbus group that'll take a Dragoon? If I missed that, do you know how heartbroken I would be?
But the thing is that FF14, again, like I think FF11 was a game that was designed to try to keep people logging in and playing over long periods of time, right? It was something that encouraged continued habit forming, behavior. Whereas
I'm sure meth heads call it habit too.
But yeah. I mean, it definitely was addictive. I mean, and MMOs of that era have a much more, a much bigger reputation for their addictiveness.
What are the 2 things that MMOs of that era get compared to every time?
Crack.
Ever crack?
Drugs?
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely drugs.
Spousal abuse. Drugs and spousal abuse. That's what MMOs of that era are compared to.
That is actually really true because, I mean, if MMOs were infamous for anything other than being a time suck, it would be how many relationships that they ruined.
Well, that too. And also they just hurt you no matter what.
The MMO is the abuse of spouses.
Yeah, exactly. They just hurt you.
Okay. Yeah,
I guess. It tortures you to keep running back to it anyway. Like,
yep. No matter how much it hurt you kept playing.
But I feel like there has been a distinct shift, especially since, World of Warcraft, where the emphasis on trying to build on habitual play or long-term deep investment from your player community has been kind of shoveled out the door in favor of a more, I want to say more solo experience, but a more isolated experience, I think is a little bit more fair to say.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has come down to trying to get all of those people who can't really commit to just hours and hours a fucking day to stand around in Dragon's area, right? You know.
Well, and I again, to go back to the documentary that we've been talking about today, is they talk about the creation of FF11, and at the time none of them really played Western MMOs, so they thought they designed what they believed an MMO should be.
They designed what they thought a Japanese MMO was supposed to be. Yeah, that's kind of important distinction.
Yeah, and so when 14 came around, that was only the time they were being introduced to the concept of a Western MMO. And that's kind of what they modeled it after, as opposed to what we were used to as 11 players, the Japanese style of MMO.
Well, and another important thing that they had mentioned in that no-clip documentary as well is that, you know, the FF11 development team spent a lot of time playing EverQuest and understanding the underpinnings of EverQuest, but when you ask the FF14 1.0 team, among them who was playing World of Warcraft, almost none of them did. Almost none of them even had a context for any of the things that World of Warcraft was even bringing to the table at that point. And it does seem, you know, like, I think that Yoshi P has probably taken this a little bit, taken FF14 a little bit more too much to the side of World of Warcraft for my personal taste.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's my personal opinion.
It's too World of Warcraft for even World of Warcraft at this point.
I mean,
it really is, because it's more the old World of Warcraft. Because something that Aniro, you even pointed out earlier when you were asking Juxta, and I think that a lot of the MMOs do this, and to the caller who, you know, is trying to point out the differences between what FF11 did that maybe, you know, we don't want to see in FF14, is that every other MMO from expansion to expansion changes a little bit and sort of adjusts things a little bit. And for the most part, FF14, from A Realm Reborn to Heavensward and now to Stormblood,
is now just consistent. Yeah,
done that.
It's very stagnant.
It is, and I think that's problematic.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay.
I think, I mean, especially what's happened to the combat system in Stormblood.
That's the only thing that you can point to, though.
Game on its head. And in terms of, sure, like the you know, you guys were talking about Diadem, about hunts, you know, even, you know, the game at its core, you're looking at raids, you're looking at dungeons, X primals. These have been the same since ARR. Mm-hmm. But they're changing up the mechanics. They're changing up how the game plays for all of us, even those of us who've been here since you know, fucking September 2013, 14, whatever the hell it was. I mean, fuck all of you, you know, crazy people who have been playing since 1.0.
Yeah, no, but, I agree with that. I don't know how anyone did that.
Yeah, I think the game, if you look at it from what it was when A Realm Reborn came out, it's recognizable on its face as, oh, okay, I can go do dungeons, I can go fight primals, I can do all of these things, but you know, it's a lot more approachable. It's we look at Titan as one of those things that we hold up as like, oh, this was the fight back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, Titan Hard.
I think yeah, exactly, Titan Hard and then Titan X. But then we look at it, and there are so many different mechanics that have been added to the primal fights, but they've been added so slowly that I think you kind of have to look at it and say, you know, the fight as it goes now is totally different than, say, like Garuda. You know, the primals as they were when A Realm Reborn was out, and we were all trying to do, you know, our high level 90 relics.
So let me ask you a question though. What incentive does a new player picking up Stormblood have to have any of those experiences? Like, I get that, you know, we can't rewind the clock and we can't bring this game back to when Titan Hard was the hardest thing in the fucking game. I understand that. What I'm saying is, if someone wanted to go back and experience those things, what kind of incentive is there for them, much less anyone else who's helping them or to try to find any help? Like, what incentive is there to do any of that? Because one of my biggest complaints about this game is that, you know, we throw out old content so readily and end up replacing it with the same thing. Like you know what I mean? Like we move on from content and then it only ends up getting replaced by the same content. You know?
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that. It's, you know, the only reason I have to go and take somebody through that old shit is because, you know, just because they haven't done it before.
For a second chance point.
Yeah,
that's
Wondrous
it.
Tales, of
that's
course.
it. Like, you can get a second chance
and if
point
we're
out
talking
of it.
about like benefit to me, then yeah, that's basically it. It's Wondrous Tale.
But there, other MMOs have solved that problem, though. You know what I mean? Like other MMOs either have solved that problem or that problem never arose, right? Because it's just not. I felt like that was something that I didn't experience in FF11 all that much. There were specific NMs or specific activities that didn't apply to the job that I was trying to get gear for, but there was not one singular event that I just completely wrote off because I didn't need anything from it.
Oh, I mean, we talk about 11, and the major difference between 11 and 14 is the progression. I mean, FF14, all we want to do is increase our eye level, whereas FF11, it's entirely horizontal. The game was at 75 for how many years, right?
Right.
And not only that, like, fucking how long did leaping boots keep you going? You could wear them at level 75.
Yeah, on some jobs, yeah. Core
Like,
stats
so-
on boots? No, that doesn't ever happen.
Yeah, you're looking at a game where like those NMs that you could beat at level 50 at level 11, right?
Yeah.
You could beat Lizzie. That the gear that you would get from them was still good, and that guild, that the economy was still relevant. Whereas you've got in this game, like the economy doesn't exist. You know, guild doesn't matter. The only thing that actually matters is what's the current eye level, and you're only getting that from tomes. You're only getting that from X primals, and I mean that unfortunately it makes all the old content stale when it comes to, you know, current gear and anything that you need right now.
Well, I mean, it can make current content stale. Do you remember Bismarck EX last time around?
Dead on Arrival.
Dead on Arrival.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's...
we were...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, we were doing it last week just because people needed the... what the hell is it? The birds, right? And then it's, you know, you're at what are we? 300 right now, level 70. We're fucking destroying it before the second set of ad spawns, and I mean it's totally ridiculous content. And you're right, when it came out in the first place, it was totally irrelevant because Ravana was out, and you got a better weapon from it when that came out.
Yep, exactly. Like you literally did Bismarck one time to unlock Ravana.
Right. And again, it's not, look, I think that it's just a question of the dev team asking themselves, like, how do we try to funnel players to specific places? And it's not like they don't have a concept of this, like, right? Like they absolutely do have a concept of this, because it seems like every other patch we're funneled back into PvP somehow.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they have an idea of how to direct their player base and what motivates their player base. But what I don't think that they have ever actually seen firsthand, at least not for FF14, is when you do it properly with gear.
Yes, because everything that they've done, because you know, they've funneled us back through using Wondrous Tale. They've funneled us back through using books from the relic weapon.
Yep, exactly. And it's been kind of like these kind of sectioned off places, right? Like there's never been a bigger goal out of any of that shit, right? Like it's always been like, yeah, it's a step in your relic process that refocuses you back into old hard mode primals, right?
Like,
for
a month.
Yeah, exactly. And then everyone moves on, right? But if they figured out a long-term concurrent reward, which again, I've been saying, put in uber pieces of gear. Like, just put in like fucking OP gear that is going to be relevant all the way to the end of your expansion cycle. That way, you ensure that people are going to be using it. Or make it upgradable, but you can upgrade it all the way to what the strength of a piece of gear at the end of the expansion cycle would be.
And then long as you're willing to put in thousands of hours of time.
Right. And then ease those requirements to reasonable levels, non-poop sock levels, as you come up in expansions or in patch cycles, right? Like, I feel like those are two ways that you can immediately be able to start addressing this problem. And every time I end up talking about this, I always end up getting some smartass that pops up in YouTube comments or in the chat room telling me why that can't work. And no one has been able to, in a convincing way, tell me why. Because what they tell me is, oh, it'll mess up world first balance. It'll mess up raid balance. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Nobody. Who gives a fuck about that? No one. Honestly, the world firsters, your 1%ers in this game, fuck them.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? If you disrupt that raid scene in order to get, I don't know, even 10% more people back into the raid scene, you've already won.
Yeah,
the goal met. Like, fuck the world firsters. Like, honestly, can I ask you something? Like, who can name a world firster character off the top of their fucking head? Who can name one person who's like shooting for world firsts anymore?
Not anymore.
No one cool or important is trying to world first anymore.
We used to be able to name free companies, but they even, like, the big ones broke apart.
They all fell out. Yes. Yeah. They all fell a fucking apart.
Lucretia, and there was one other one.
Elysium
has been
Elysium, it was the JP and the NA, and I think neither of them are like super world first anymore.
Okay, I'm sorry. Name, chat, shut the fuck up for a second. Name someone without a fucking Twitch channel that's trying to world first. Name a group. I
don't know if you even can do that anymore.
Blue Garter doesn't count. Because they're friends.
Because we like them. And we can't tear into them. Well, we can, but we're not going to.
I don't know. I don't even know that it's the same group that is affiliated with
There are two different Blue Garter.
I know there are.
There's a big thing. Yeah.
I know there are. Anyway, no, but Fiorin, I think that you raised some good points and interesting conversation coming out of that. And yeah, I really do feel like if they could address the long-term motivation problem, the gear lust problem, that they would end up solving a lot of other long-term issues surrounding the game and surrounding sentiment and player motivation. Because those are all really important things when you start talking about the lifeblood of an MMO, which is how many people are logging in.
Absolutely agreed. I mean, even now the expansion has just come out, and I don't feel like logging in anymore. It's like, why the fuck do I need to? The raid isn't out yet.
Content
Nothing is on yet.
You gotta wait until there's
content. The most I can do is Susanoo and Lakshmi, and that's whatever.
Yeah.
And for anyone who says it would be too much work to do, I'd like to quote Yoshi P himself. Developers should do it because it's good for the game.
Developers just should.
Yeah,
yep.
I agree.
That's what he said.
Yep. And Fufu in the chat saying Aniro's triggered just because he doesn't know shit about the modern raid community. To be fair, I didn't know anything about the old raid community. Okay, the thing is that knowing nothing. And I completely admit to being a fucking layman outside of, like my own raid group that I was in for like a little while. You know what I mean? Like knowing almost nothing, not wanting to educate myself. I still knew people or the names of groups that were trying for world firsting during Binding Coil.
Although Jin had a good point that people try not to stream their world first as in to like keep it competitive. So you're not going to see streamers going world first. So that's why it's a little bit harder to name those people right now.
I'm just saying no one can name them. Like no one, and of course
anymore now. I don't.
Frufu doesn't bother to name anybody. They just throw out the fucking criticism errantly. But yeah, like that's the point. Like even if you're invested in this shit, like can you name who's going after world firsting? Like do you know who's lusting after that world first title for Stormblood? Because I don't.
No, it certainly is not our group. No,
I want to do it, but I'm not going to strive for that world.
If we still have the caller real quick, are you calling from a supermarket out of curiosity? Because I swear I hear people like ringing up supermarket items in your background.
No, I'm fucking standing in Ralger's Reach next to the summoning bell. People are crafting. It just fucking sounds like all this nonsense going on.
Fair enough. I just wanted to know because I thought you were calling from like a Kroger or something.
Nope, definitely in my house. Got a beer next to me.
I definitely pictured a guy who is like literally like standing with customers at the register as he's like ringing things through, talking about this.
No, I think that Final Fantasy XI had some really valid opinion. You know, like
that's what I was picturing in my head. That entire
really
call.
Want that. Can we have that happen one day, please?
God, please call in from your work,
please. Oh my God, that would be
call
so.
in from the most awkward places,
and like get in a really loud argument with me.
Like, what?
Oh my God,
that would be so funny. Anyway, Furion, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Appreciate hearing from you. We've got about 20 minutes left in this episode.
Man, time flies when you're having fun.
Fan fiction time?
I mean, I don't know. If we have any more callers, Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. If you'd like to chime in on this conversation, we'll take probably one or two more callers if we can fit them in.
Guys, Nika doesn't want to do a fan fiction, so that means we should definitely do it.
No.
Yeah, I would say don't try to encourage people to call in by saying, call in so we don't have to do fan fiction.
Yeah, no, we'll never get
demanding
calls.
fan fiction.
I know.
Can I read this email about raids that we got?
No.
Okay. I mean, we just got
fan time.
No.
No.
This is just an email we got from Gigapants of Excalibur, who just summed up a lot of what I feel about the current rating scene. It says, this goes out to Nika and Ascalia, mostly as you two are heavily involved in the rating scene. All right, let's not drop words like heavily involved. That's a little extreme, but
actively.
Yeah. How can you stomach these raids, if you can even call them that? FF14 has some of the worst raiding content I have ever participated in. It barely feels like you are actually raiding something as opposed to just being glorified primals. Every encounter feels isolated from one another due to zero connectivity throughout the raid between bosses. Not having any tangible connectivity to the main story isn't doing itself any favors either. The 24-man raids are arguably structured better than the 8-man raids, albeit still not ideal. They at least have connectivity between bosses so that it actually gives a sense that you are raiding something. Variety is also lacking. 4 bosses per 4 to 5 month raid period? Really? The bosses, at least in Alexander, have almost zero lore implications, which is a huge mistake that ties back to it not being a part of the main story. All of this compounds onto the issue of 14's raid structure. It really is just, here's a bunch of bosses we created, insert random model, fight them. It's so lazy and uninspired. The excuse of people missing out on main story because of the raid barrier of entry is not valid anymore with normal mode existing. Almost with anyone with half a brain can clear this. This is what is keeping me in WoW over 14. Having 3 raids so far, each with their own zones and a combined total of 20 bosses thus far since the launch of Legion, and another 9 boss raid coming in the next 2 or 3 months, how can you even compare? Oh, and all of them are extremely tied to the main story and have major lore implications. If Square Enix can get their shit together and stop churning out one disappointment after another that's taking resources away from developing raid content, then maybe we will see improvements. Until then, I fully expect Alexander to be repeated all over again.
Now,
Peace.
this is what I like about this email, because all of that was completely valid. This email was written in March.
Yeah, pretty much.
4 months ago, huh? How about that?
And yet
it still holds just as true today.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that kind of concerning? Because,
yes.
Because to me, again, this speaks to the fact that these problems are way longer standing than just Stormblood. And again,
wait, but the raids haven't come out yet, so you don't know
they
for
haven't.
certain
See,
if
that's
they're
why
going
I'm
to
holding.
be like that again.
It's true that I think Omega is going to be exactly the same, but
we'll
I
know
want
in a
to say
week.
that some of
We
this
don't know,
compelling
Nika.
content they say is coming, and maybe Eureka, who knows?
Okay, but no, here's the problem. Eureka is 100% going to be for the relic weapon, which is 100% casual content.
But Dynamis was for the relic weapon, and that wasn't casual content.
but
Are you
Square.
citing 11?
But the relic weapons in this game are casual content.
Yeah,
and they've never been anything but.
And Yoshi P has said that explicitly. He's said explicitly, that relic weapons are supposed to be casual content.
Didn't he say you're a scrub if you get a relic weapon? I remember him saying something like that.
Yeah, it's for the casual specifically. Yeah.
And which I think is very I think that there's a certain amount of dissonance, like cognitive dissonance, that ends up putting out there. Like, it's so fucking confusing to have your relic weapon be for your casual fucking players. It just it is. It's just not a concept that I think.
But and this is where I think they speak so true, is that that it's not tied into the main story when you have a normal mode version of it is so beyond unacceptable.
Yeah.
And the fact that like literally the bosses that we fought in Alexander, you could have put them almost anywhere in the game with the exception of like Alexander.
Yeah.
Like you could have put Ark.
The final one.
Ark could have been anywhere. Arc
Yeah.
Chase or whatever the fuck they called it.
Yeah, and I think that is a big problem. Another thing that they identified that I really liked was that none of the raids or bosses or confrontations seem to play one into another.
No,
nothing.
the only exception to that is brute justice.
Okay, yeah,
that's the only exception to that rule in Alexander, right?
Yeah,
that's the only time one thing played into another.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And the thing is that Coil had that feel. I mean, granted, they gave us
It
stupid
did.
things like T3 where we were like sonicking around, but even still, it felt like we were actually exploring Bahamut's prison and we were going to like,
Or that some of the bosses actually mattered, like Nail. I mean, Nail him or herself, however you want to look at it.
Usually in the lore, as well as fucking Phoenix.
Well, and just that one, there's that one term where all you're doing is like dropping down, like it's a jumping puzzle to get down.
Yeah,
but
T3, that's what
you
I'm
feel, T3, you're feeling like you're trying to get down to the next section of Coil.
You're actually
And then
raiding
T4 was
something.
an entire it was just an elevator, but
Yeah, but you were nevertheless going to the next section of the raid. That's the whole purpose of it.
Right. And there's just so much about this email that I agree with on its face and that I appreciate. Again, like you said, this being written 3 months ago and still ringing exactly as true today as it did when it was written, I think is...
But I mean, 3 months ago, there hasn't been any new raids.
Yeah, to be fair, no new raid content has come out since then.
True.
So I'm curious to say, I mean, I have a feeling that it will still hold true. But
Yeah, if it
after
still
the
holds-
next raid cycle, if this email still holds true,
But that's exactly the thing, though, is that as long as it copies and pastes the structure that came before it, it absolutely will ring true.
Yeah, I need this. It's like, even if in this section of Omega, there's just make the bosses play into one another, make me feel like going from tier 1 to tier 4.
Even if it's not totally different, just give us something that feels fresh. That's all.
Right. If I can get through tier 1 to tier 4 and I feel like I've gone on a journey from tier 1 to tier 4, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But I need those bosses to not look like just like, hey, we're doing an Omega themed raid. Can you draw 4 things that look like Omega kind of?
Right.
No.
Yeah, and all of that is massively disappointing once you get your hands on it. And again, a lot of people were very critical about Alexander Extreme and how the first turn of it was, or the first 4 confrontations in it.
Right.
Were very hard. There was a strong emphasis on DPS output, and they had boosted the challenge quite a bit. And I think everyone gonna go when they look back on it, that's what they blame it on. They were like, "Oh, well, Square Enix tried to make it too hard, too quick," and all of these steps of faith nerfers and all of those idiots kind of come out and they point to that and they go, "See, this is what happens when Square Enix makes things too hard."
But you can do it right, and they did it. Like the difficulty in the next 2 steps was fine.
It was, and I actually think that the hit to the rating scene came from everyone being able to experience everything out of the easy mode and going, well, that's it. Like that's the experience that they're going to offer. Like, why do I want to have that?
What you asked for.
Like, why do I want to have this experience in an extreme mode? Like, I think that fundamental question was at the heart of why am I participating in Alexander? You didn't have that question with Binding Coil of Bahamut, which is exactly what we were saying when we were saying don't put in an easy mode, because the motivation there was inherent.
Right.
It was to see the story. I could give a shit if I got gear out of that. I didn't really care if I got gear out of it, because eventually I'd probably get some piece of gear if I kept doing it.
Yeah, well, eventually you don't. You just outscaled as soon as the expansion was over.
Well, we didn't really know that at the time. But my real motivation for sticking to it for all 3 turns, because I dabbled in the first turn and then found a group first, second, and third. And the reason I kept coming back was because I wanted to see those story moments.
Yeah. Yeah, and even later on, Bahamut is totally worth going back and doing all those. And even now, as you can blow through them, it's totally worth going back to see it.
Just to see it all. There's so much about it was cool.
And even though the Alexander story and cutscenes We're not as up to par as Binding Coil was.
That's an understatement.
That is, that's a very diplomatic way to put that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the nicest thing you've ever said.
And I think that you wouldn't have seen the same fall off that you did if people had to work to find that information out. Like if you weren't just given a shitty story on a platter that you didn't have to work for, but it was a shitty story that you had to actually work for.
Which is worse, to not have to work for it or to work for it?
I honestly, I really don't know what would have been worse in this
If I had
case.
put the work into clearing Gordius and gotten that story from it, I might have been pissed. Like if that's the story I'd gotten out of the effort I put into Gordius,
and I wouldn't have been. I don't think I would have been able to argue that you shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, like saying in the chat, Coil's story was worth that work.
It was.
Alexander's wouldn't have been.
I also agree with that assessment, but I don't think that the drop-off would have been quite as dramatic. I don't think that the bottoming out of the raiding scene community, most raid groups, I mean, I'm gonna just throw out a random number, and this is just, based on my own anecdotal evidence, but I'm gonna say that 35% of raid groups did not make the jump between Binding Coil and Alexander.
I think more made the jump, but
they got to A3 and then everyone broke.
I think they disbanded in Gordius. I think that during Gordius, where you saw a lot of groups go, you know what, this story sucks anyway. Fuck this.
This isn't worth it.
I think most people who did Coil probably gave Alexander a chance
A3
and at least tried it, and then they said, "Fuck this."
Okay,
that would be my guess.
All right, I guess I can agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I totally understand not making the raid literally connect with the main story, but then I'm hoping that Omega, since it is tied in with Nero and Sid and what we're doing, that it will tie in as. Hopefully,
why would you?
That's what happened in Alexander.
But the thing is with Alexander is that it was supposed to tie in. I was hoping to get more lore about Charlene and everything and the people who bound it, but instead we just got stupid goblin content.
That's fair. That's fair.
A forced love story, and I feel like if they had actually given us the real lore history of Charlene and talked about that rather than just here's this girl and she's in love with this guy who's inside, and that's not what.
Nika. No, actually, that's a really good point, because I also think that I did have a certain amount of expectation to learn more about,
why the fuck is it under there in the first
place? Or what, why, because, it's in the Dravanian hinterlands, right? Why is that civilization there so fucking destroyed? We actually never really learned that much about the Charleans throughout the entirety of Heavensward.
That's not Charlene proper.
No, it's not. It's not.
And it's weird because that they apparently Doma got taken over and the Charleans left because they were scared they would be next, and then their whole town just fell and nobody ever went back. It's really bizarre, and we don't really know much else besides that.
Well, and one thing that's a little different this time around is with Alexander, we didn't get our first look at Alexander and the fact that was going to be our raid until we got to that zone. Once the expansion had launched and once we were already that far into it. Whereas this time, the whole thing that went down with Omega to give everyone an introduction happened in the MSQ before the expansion.
So it feels a little more tied in.
It does feel a bit more tied in.
Yeah, the stakes are inherently different. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have a history with Nail, you have a history with the Calamity, you have a personal history and an investment in all of those things. Maid and her boyfriend and all of that dumb shit, the fucking goblins, I felt like I was a fly on the wall looking at somebody else's story that I didn't care about.
I would have loved to have all of the people who are actually from Charlene, like Y'shtola, Elfina, all of them kind of discussing how this affects their history. That would have been so much cooler.
Yeah, but instead you're just shoved off into this Ora clan who you don't know anything about them. You have no attachment to them. They don't play a greater lore aspect in the world.
Right.
And then they end up just shoehorning that fucking horn from 1.0 almost to try to make it have some sort of desperate relevance.
And that's the thing too, is with Binding Coil, we knew who Alice was. We hadn't done tons with her, but we knew who she was. We knew who Louis Soir was. We knew what the stakes of the calamity were.
It felt personal.
And that's where like I do have a bit more hope for the story of Omega, is that because it's been built into the MSQ, even if not greatly, at least I have some concept of who all these characters are and why they matter.
But hang on, is Ilberd's is the fight against Ilberd your fucking fight?
The fight against Ilberd?
I mean, if you think about the things that have led to Omega, right? Like you've got Ilberd and his sacrifice or suicide, whichever way you want to put it, to create the primal. To be able to create the primal, right? Like, how much of a personal connection do we have to that? And again, I
want to say we had a pretty big one at first. I mean, Ilberd was part of Old Dog. We were there when him and Raubon had the whole
came to blows. But it's Raubon's fight, though. Like again, we were personally involved with Louis Soir, right? Like we had time.
Yeah, he was a quest giver.
and when he turned into Phoenix, like I was like there was that little moment of like, oh man, I got to kill fucking Louis Soir.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. Hey,
like it and it felt personal, right? Like you're going up against Nail, right? Like that was the same person. If you had been playing 1.0, that was the same person that you had to beat to complete the fucking thing. It felt like everything was coming full circle from 1.0, and things were becoming more fleshed out from 1.0. And then there was this reversion once we got into Heavensward. There was this like very sudden reversion where we went back, and now we're a fly on a wall for a story that doesn't really involve us. And I feel like there is at least a little bit of that with the Raubon-Ilberd conflict. Yes, we were present for the bloody banquet. Yes, we were present to see his arm get removed.
And Ilberd was a crystal brave.
And we were able to see his pain and anger, but it wasn't ours. It's still not ours. To this day, it's still not ours. And even if you don't...
We're a soldier pledged to the grand companies, though. To be fair, when something like this happens to one of our own, doesn't it become our fight?
No, it's different, though. It is different. It's not going to be as bad as Heavensward was, but I think that Nate's right. We might not be a fly on the wall now. Now we're just going to be a supportive friend from the sidelines.
And that's really the thing. Like, I feel like there is a disconnect when you try to focus all of the narrative aspects on your main character, on the player character, right? On yourself. And it feels like the entire world revolves around you and what your actions are doing, and you're saving the fate of the world. It all hinges on what you, the warrior of light, are doing. Except for Alexander. Except for like you're just a bit player in this thing, in this conflict between a stupid fucking goblin and a couple who you don't really care about. You know, like I want
to say without. I mean, yes, you're right, and I was going to say like a similar thing to that, but I feel like I want to say going into Stormblood, I actually thought that they did a good job of making us not feel like the center of attention, and I liked that. Like, I liked that I was a supportive friend, and I felt that a lot of the solo player instances, I really just felt like a soldier in the army. And I thought that was fucking awesome.
That's part of the problem. That adds to the disconnect because you can't have it both ways. You have to. Your game world has either got to not even give a fuck that you're there and feel like it continues to exist and move on without your influence, or you have to make everything hinge on the player character. When you try to have it both ways, I think it feels very confusing, and it feels that's when we get this disconnect, like things aren't fitting together.
Yeah, right. I agree with
you guys haven't finished this.
Just talk all at once, please.
I can't see him. I don't know when he's gonna talk.
But I think in this one, this is going to be much more of Sid and Nero's story rather than Raubon and Ilberd. I don't think we're going to see much of Raubon or Ilberd in this.
Oh, no, I don't
think so. This is going to be much more about Sid and Nero.
I'm just saying that the setup for it, though, the setup for it was a conflict between two people that was longer standing than our relationship with them. We see it culminate in one point of like very well executed narrative tension, and then like for an entire expansion, we're kind of like left to sort of sit with that. And
it's kind of hard though, because now we're going to different, like our character more, I mean, is from Eorzea and the three nations, regardless of what backstory we give to our characters in our headcanon. But when you think about it now, I mean, we went to Charlotte and we went to Alamigo. Like, our character, regardless, is not from these places. And so it's kind of hard now to keep our character as the main center of attention when this isn't going to be our fight. And if we want to keep expanding to different parts of the world, our character is not from those areas either, and it doesn't affect us in the ways it would affect Raubon or Y'shtola or whoever. So I think being the supportive friend is kind of the role we need to be right now.
Do they ever say where we're from originally?
No, we're just an adventurer that shows up one day heading towards one. I don't even know if we're from Eorzea. We're on a cart on our way to one of the nations, and you're like, "Have you been there before?" You can click yes or no. Like Surin in his headcanon is from Alamigo, but really your character's not from Alamigo. So it's like it's kind of hard at that point if we want to keep expanding. I don't think the Warrior of Light can be the center of attention. I think they still look to us like a commander. They still look to us like a hero, and everyone still calls you a hero. But I mean, because that's what you're doing. You're helping everyone liberate and save the day, la la la. But you are not the center of the story. You're just
okay. I mean, but that's not what we had for 2 expansions, right? Like, A Realm Reborn wasn't like that. Everything was
Realm Reborn was everything around you.
Yeah, everything, you felt personally invested in more stuff, right? And even if you weren't a 1.0 player, I think just the way that the entire thing is presented is much more personal, right? And it's much more palpably personal. And I at Heavensward, I feel like they tried to hit on both columns, and it spread himself too thin.
In Heavensward, we were very much the outsiders coming in and like, hey, we have a chance to help these people,
right?
And that's what we did,
right? And you did feel like a little bit removed and less personally involved, but I think that it was the most obvious and the most visible with Alexander.
That I can completely agree with, yeah.
And I think that the problem is like, it's taken us a while to really kind of put our finger on it, but I think that's where you saw the biggest detriment in that, because I'm not saying Heavensward didn't work or was a bad expansion by any means. I'm not saying Stormblood doesn't work or is a bad expansion. I'm not through enough of it to be able to give any kind of evaluation on it. What I'm saying is that there was a definitive switch between A Realm Reborn and Heavensward of the role that you as the player character are assuming. Now, to be fair, Square Enix may have tried to make that clear by removing Altana's gift, by having Midgar Somer remove
block it or whatever he was doing.
Right. And I mean, eventually, you
unlock it again,
he unlocks it again. But I feel like if you were supposed to read between the lines from a narrative perspective, it was sort of trying to reset your expectations and say, you're not going to have the same centralized role in this section of the story moving forward. But the way that they wrote most of the scenarios, you did.
Yeah, well,
I see what you're saying, that they kind of tried to have you be the center of attention without having you be the center of attention.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, well, that's the thing is, like,
I think Stormblood does it better. I actually think that the entire time they look at you like a commander and they look to you for guidance, but in the end, you're just a soldier, and I feel like I liked it a lot.
Yeah, in Heavensward, like, they were coming off Realm Reborn, where you were nothing short of the savior. Like,
I said Altana, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry.
You're this person who appears who cannot be influenced by primals, so you're actually able to combat them when no one can. You are the savior come to save this world. And then, when they sent you to Heavensward, because the problem with you being the savior who ends it all is that gets boring real fast.
Right.
So they tried to reset it back to that, but they still wrote the story the same way,
but here's
with you in a different position.
Right, and I think that Stormblood has the ability to sort of reset that expectation a little bit easier because, while we didn't have access to Ishgard, right? Like, and there were things that prevented our progress into these Ishgardian areas, we weren't physically removed from that end of the world like we are with Alamigo and Baelsar's Wall. We're not physically removed from that end of the world like we are with Authard. And so now when you have that, like, it felt like in Heavensward, like, you did all of these epic, amazing things, and only word of that stuff is only now just starting to reach the hinterlands and shit like that, where, if it should have felt more like a part of a living world that was all kind of interconnected instead of, well, this is our expansion areas, so we're going to have to move the time bubble a little bit forward here.
Well, and you do get a little bit of that with, like, when you go to the first few missions over with the Resistance, people know who you are. Like, oh, you're the Warrior of Light. That's awesome. You're here to help us. That's great. And then when you get to Othard for the first time, a lot of people are kind of like,
they don't know who you are.
Scalia, Rhea, who?
Yeah,
like they don't. Like,
which I think is an important distinction to make. And I think
it is kind of cool to see the difference in the soldiers. Like the Resistance is definitely like their morale's boosted when they see you walk around, but the people in Doma are still like.
And I think to that end, I think that Square Enix has a bit more of the opportunity to reset those expectations and allow for those kinds of scenarios to unfold and take place. But I think what they've set up for themselves with A Realm Reborn being sort of like, even now in hindsight, their most well remembered, their most fondly remembered pieces of content. I think that does cast a big shadow on everything that comes forward, and Stormblood, if it wants to lift itself out of the shadow of the rest of FF14, like I really do feel like at some point the FF14 team is going to need to do the amount of heavy lifting that they did between 1.0 and 2.0 to be able to reinvigorate the core community and the veteran community. Yeah. And again, that is a lot of heavy lifting, and I understand that. And it's not, and I'm not even, it's not even a request. I just think that it's probably what's going to happen to have this game continue to evolve and to be successful. If they think that they can do 5.0, literally copying and pasting the way that Heaven's Word and Stormblood preceded it, I think that they're really going to have a problem because they set their expectations so high by breaking so many conventions going in between 1.0 and 2.0.
Yeah, at this point, like you say 5.0, I need things to be different now. I need the 4.x line to do that.
We were saying that, though. We were saying that, 4.x should be the point where you focus on not new acquisitions, but your veteran player base. And to be able to do that, I think, takes a massive shift in the way that the development team approaches making new content. And I think that if you take Stormblood as our example, I don't think that we're going to be getting at this expansion. We may not get it ever.
Well, if you're going to do it, it's going to take a bold choice, and it's going to take someone.
And that's scary. I mean, it is.
It is scary, but it's going to take someone like at Square Enix, like Yoshi, or someone on that team to feel that, like, to be on board with that bold choice and go to bat for it.
Yeah.
And and I get, like, coming out of the disaster that was 1.0 and the fear of ever returning to it, that might be nerve-wracking. But if you want your game to survive, you got to make a bold choice every now and then. You don't have to do something crazy every expansion. You don't. But every 3, maybe, you kind of do.
But I feel like the fear is that one catastrophic patch could do it. Could be the difference between, like in the point of view of the devs, that they're just like trying to avoid that one catastrophic decision, that one catastrophic move off of what has worked to something that is less sound or less predictably. The outcome is going to be predictable from it, right? Like,
but that place that you get to, that place where one catastrophic patch is all it takes, that place is bred out of malaise, out of years of it all being the same.
Right, because here's the truth of it, is that every MMO eventually gets to that place. It's a question of how quickly or slowly you get there. And I understand that Square Enix may be trying to make sure that the fall off is a slow bleed instead of, a cliff,
right?
Yep. And I understand that, but if you want to keep, you want to retain people long term, I think that you've really got to give a lot of thought to the way that you present your content as a whole moving forward in an expansion, in a patch.
Raising the level cap in 11 was a bold decision, and it changed that game forever. Like, you were never going back to how it was before that. After you made that decision,
it needed to happen. When it happened, it needed to happen.
It did. Like, everyone was watching, and somehow, even though it needed to happen so bad, everyone was watching was just as stunned. Like, you couldn't believe that it actually did happen.
Yeah.
You're just like watching, like, oh, cool. What new job ability for Paladin are they going to show off? And then that levels up, and you're like,
the one.
Oh,
and there was another quote from Yoshi P. And again, I'm paraphrasing from this documentary, and that was, he said, it was really their choice to make a bold choice, right? Like to say, not only, and there were two bold choices that they made, by the way. Okay, the first bold choice was that we're going to destroy much of the land that we had built.
Yep.
And we're going to rework this thing from the ground up. That was the first impressive choice that they made. And the second one was that they were going to continue to develop 1.0 while working on 2.0. They were essentially going to double their workload and not give up on the continued development of the players that they already had. That was an important point that he made.
Yeah.
That without the players that they had already gained, that there would have been no way for this project to continue.
I wonder what happened to that sentiment.
The fact that it's in that documentary, to me, signals that Yoshi P on some level does get it.
Yeah, he recognizes it.
Right.
But you got to also be willing to act on that at some point.
Yes. And it makes me concerned about the will to do things over there. And that's not a personal criticism of Yoshi P. That's not a criticism of any one member of their staff. That's a criticism of the culture.
Do you think he still has the sway and authority to make a bold choice like that right now, as it is? If he went to SE and said, I want to do something bold?
Honest to God, I think that if Yoshi P really believed in something and he wanted, and he really pulled for it and said, I believe in this. It may be a weird decision. You may not understand it, but I think that this is the only thing that can keep this game alive. I think that, yes, he would advocate for it. And I think that he would I think...
And SE would allow it?
I don't... That's the question.
That's my question, is do you think he still has the authority to make a bold choice like that? He can believe it. And like you say, because on some level,
no one has the ability to make that choice. Like, there's no one person. Like, that's a committee choice. There's no way that something like this game doesn't get past
the board of directors has to say yes.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that's partially the difference, because at that time they were so desperate with 1.0 that if a guy says I have a bold decision, they might be willing to listen to it. But right now, while it's making them a fuck ton of money, it's harder to get a board of directors on board with a crazy change.
And again, that's why I'm not criticizing Yoshi P as a person. I'm criticizing the culture that exists, and entrenched thinking. And for all the good that Square Enix has done with this development team, for all the things that they do right, like their transparency, like their willingness to be open with their fan base, their willingness to communicate with the fan base, all of those things are I think very important, and things that they are very good at. They've been very good at.
Yep.
But I do think that there's shit that needs to be fixed. Like, there's absolutely stuff that's not working. As long-term players, we've identified that it's not working. A lot of people have gotten their butts hurt about that opinion. But the thing is that, I think that we've outlined in countless shows why it's valid. Why it's valid to feel like that. And again, I'm totally willing to be the guy that ends up taking the heat and taking the flack for having a much more honest conversation. Because as much as you guys want to sit here and say, oh, well, you get salty, you get mad, you get angry and emotional. Again, we're trying to drive conversation. I'm much more interested what you guys have to say when you call in and call the show and talk to us and give your opinion about where we're at than what my fucking opinion is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
we can't have dead air, so we got to talk, but we'd rather you talk.
But the thing is that, to get people to a point where they want to express that or express themselves beyond, hey, I'm so hyped for this thing. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to push that conversation into sometimes uncomfortable places. And I really appreciate the almost 300 people that stick it out with us to the end of the show nearly every week. That, the 20,000 people that download this show every week from our website. website. Those are the people, even the hate listeners. Those are the people that we
love the hate listeners.
Yeah, right. We have fun with them. But the thing is that. I think that the people who listen to this show, who partake in these conversations, who think about these kind of subjects a little bit more deeply, a little bit more meaningfully, that it does end up creating a really productive dialogue in the end. Whether or not you agree with the initial opinion that sparked that conversation or not is kind of secondary. And the thing is I am not scared to be the bad guy. I'm not here to make friends. I don't need friends. I've got enough friends. I'm here to make a show. I'm here to talk about a game that I enjoy, that I want to see continue to grow, and that I want to see not fail. And if we're going to be honest about this, then we should talk about it honestly. And if something's not working, should talk about it not working and how to what possibilities exist to fix it, instead of just asking for nerfs.
Yeah. Oh, God. Nerf prees.
You fucking worthless game players, you. Anyway.
Well, congratulations. You ran out the clock for the fan fiction.
I did, didn't I?
Well done.
Yay!
Well done. Another week where we've been spared.
Surprised.
There's another week where we have been spared having to read fan fiction.
Thank God.
What about next week, though? Dun, dun, dun.
Guess you'll have to tune in to find out. All right, that's going to be it for Limit Break Radio today. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Nope.
I thought the story was a bit most of the way through up to the last 75%.
Okay. Yeah, it was a pretty meh.
Up to the last 75%, so it was meh for the first 25%, and then the rest was awesome? Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, the way that was written...
So the last 75% of the story was good, but the first part was just meh.
You may want to clarify that to the channel. Anyway.
The Girabanya stuff was really bad.
It wasn't great. Anyway.
All right, that's going to be it for Limit Break Radio this week. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. We appreciate it, as always. Make sure that you set your clocks Sundays at 4 p.m. Twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio is where you can catch the live show if you want to get in on the live calls, or if you want to subscribe to the podcast, that's over at limitbreakradio.com. If you're listening live, stick around. Coming up next, Checkpoint Radio, our latest episode. It's going to be available for you to listen right here on Twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. I want to see all 305 of you listening to Checkpoint Radio this week. All right, guys, thanks so much. I want to thank my crew. Skoro's been helping us post these to YouTube. Kooky has been monitoring our calls, and we thank her so much for her hard work, not just with Limit Break Radio, but with Checkpoint Radio and Final Encountercast as well. And, of course, my crew, Juxtaposition, Escalia Ryumasa, Nika Kayanian, Kalo Landis. I'm an hero. Keep listening. Limit Break Radio is a production of LimitBreakRadio.com and Bender Media Productions. This episode was produced by Kalo Landis, Juxtaposition, and Kooky Persona. Final Fantasy XIV and Eorzea are trademarks of Square Enix. Funding for Limit Break Radio is provided by Miri Kennett, Satori Komeji, Dark Flux, Null Packet, Shira Heartslot, Nexian Theta, Brian Alexander, and fellow Limit Break Radio listeners. To support Limit Break Radio, visit patreon.com/Limit Break Radio. Opening music in this episode from Daniel Lambie. Listen to Man with the Machine Gun and other great tracks at facebook.com/Daniel Lambie Metal Gamer. Closing music in this episode provided by Husky by the Geek. Listen to this and other great Final Fantasy XIV and video game rock covers and original music at facebook.com/Husky by the Geek. In-game graphics for Limit Break Radio's Twitch stream are provided by Diamond Multimedia. Check out their line of AMD graphics cards and other hardware at diamondmm.com. Limit Break Radio and its hosts are solely responsible for its content. And now,